by now you all know there is no doubt. We have a new King of Smack. He has the honor. I will award him with his own phone line briefly, but let's relive the moment. Earlier, this is now what we could call the Call of the Year.
Van Smack, what an honor to be a part of the first annual Great American SmackOff. Today, the jungle proves that there are a few Tarzans. The rest are a bunch of cheetah chimps who wish they had game like I. First off, Denver, I don't read my calls, I don't sing my smack, and I don't tolerate poems. I'm very aware that Kelly Rudy can die in between the pipes on any given night. I know that Piazza's the strongest man in SoCal, and I've come to hate the filth, which is the battery-chucking, water-hoarding, Chinatown worshiping no-cals. But don't forget where my loyalty lies. The greatest city, the deepest tradition, and the best smack comes from New York and the bricks. When the earthquake hit, I didn't pick up the fish wrap to read about the damage. I looked to the box scores to see if the Knicks pulled out another gutty win. I have a passion to see Cal Ripken rupture a kidney this season than to see him break my beloved Lou Gehrig's record. Rome, I've made a lot of friends in the jungle. I'm psyched about that. So now all you rotisserie geeks can put your pens down. I'm not going to read you a top 10 list of who I think has game. It's already understood. You know, when the strike went down, I didn't feel for the working stiff whose only job in life was to mop up the bathroom floor after I missed the urinal. Who cares about the 70-year-old grandma who serves beer at a pathetically slow pace so I have to miss 2 full innings of baseball? I felt for Don Mattingly, who was going to participate in his first postseason. Or how about the kids? Does anybody care about the kids who can name more Power Rangers than pro baseball players? When the Rangers won the Stanley Cup after 54 years, you have no idea how I felt. It's much bigger than that. It's a passion. It's my life. That's why I brought the word of the jungle to such great events as Mardi Gras and Down Under to Sydney, Australia, just to name a few. I can do this because I give my girlfriend cheap costume jewelry so I can road trip anytime I want. Today is a celebration of smack. Everybody in the jungle has different styles. I compare my experience to when I pledged my fraternity back in college. For the first few months, I was a punk who had to wait on hold and pick and choose my spots to smack. Now I feel like the pledge master who gets to spank the new plebes on the butt while they say, "Thank you, JT the Brick. Can I please have another?"
Was there any doubt? It changed the entire complexion of the first annual Great American SmackOff. May I present to you the new King of Smack, JT the Brick. Brick, phenomenal effort. You have earned it. I am proud of you. It was an omnipotent scud. Brick, tremendous job.
Wow. JT, let me welcome everybody here. All right. JT, that was 30 years ago, first of all, that you called the first ever Smack Off with Jim Rome, and you obviously won the thing. Look, the omnipotent scud, as Jim remembers it. JT, first of all, I'm Sam Batesh. I like to say that I'm your first producer. I know I'm not your first ever producer, but we go all the way back to 1999. Of course, this thing goes back to 1995, but we have been dear friends, absolute co-workers, producer. We have done so much together through the years, not only back where it started in the Bay, but with the Raiders, with the Ticket 1050, so much of that. And I am just honored to be here with you today. JT, what an epic career. And by the way, in that moment, we know that you were an unbelievable stockbroker, but please take me back to the moment where that happened. I mean, as you relive that, what did that feel like for you?
Well, Sammy, first off, thank you for doing this. You are the guy that I wanted. I felt comfortable 30 years ago today to look back on this because it is an important moment absolutely in my life. I mean, it was maybe the most pivotal moment of my life when you look back at this, and I didn't expect it. That day, excuse me, when I went into Merrill Lynch and cleared off the desk on Good Friday, a day where the stock market was closed, and I was the only one in the building, in an office building, and got ready to focus to go win that contest. And the interesting part of it is, if I don't win that contest, I never meet you. I don't want to say I never do this or that. But that's kind of what this podcast is about, that was a door, a portal in my life that opened. And it opened up and welcomed me in, and I went through that door, all because of a radio show and my passion to be a caller 30 years ago. I was calling a little bit before that, but it might have been 31 years ago where I fell in love with calling sports radio and a couple of shows, not only Jim's show, but, that was the day where I peaked and had my moment, and I'm happy I did.
Well, not only that, can we talk just a little bit about what the Jungle was then and who Jim is really to all of us, and certainly was at that time? I mean, that show in so many ways defined and even continues to define sports radio. I mean, truly sports radio, both from a local level and then national. Nobody bigger than Jim. And for you to be on that level, on that day, to make that happen on that show, and really to impress Jim through the years, that must have given you in some way the idea that you could do this, because Jim's show absolutely sets the bar for anybody that wants to do this. You may have been calling and listening to other shows, but what Jim was, with his own vocabulary, what he did for this entire industry, really, you got to go back and think about it. I mean, what were you feeling going into that, knowing how big that stage was and what it meant, since it was the first SmackOff? So this was, nobody had done this before. This is a competition that did not exist. Jim made it happen. That show, that platform was the key.
Yeah, it really was. Jim was, at that point, a phenomenon. What he did was, when he started, he had a regional show in Southern California. That's when I was listening. I was calling Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, and I was calling Jim, and you could just tell the Jim show was different. I grew up in New York, and I kind of left New York when Mike and the Mad Dog were big. And, Mike and the Mad Dog are arguably the most successful show of all time on the Mount Rushmore, with Jim and just a few other ones. And that wasn't my deal, even though I was a New Yorker. I wasn't a guy in my car listening to Mike and the Mad Dog. But when I got out west and I started listening, I just heard a different style of sports talk, the caller-driven sports radio show. And Jim was just different because he had smack talk. He had his own vocabulary, which made it different. Callers gravitated to his show. And then you kind of knew instantly, if you were a good caller, that he was going to recognize it. And instantly, I was JT from La Jolla. That was my moniker. And then the Knicks are shooting their way out of the championship round. John Starks is missing all the threes. And then JT the Brick, he called me JT the Brick because it rhymed with Knicks. Because all of my phone calls, I was a specialty caller, Sam. All of my calls were on the Knicks and the Yankees. I was the Brick because I was the New Yorker in the Jungle, and he liked that. And that was really good. So when he was excited to hear me come on, I was excited to get on. And when I was done with those phone calls back then, I remember I was driving my Porsche that had one of those brick, excuse the pun, cell phones in the middle, the giant brick cell phones. And I would be pulling over at the beach in La Jolla and waiting on hold, paying those minutes back in the day. And then they'd get to me and I'd drop a bomb and I'd hang up and I'd listen to myself on delay. And then I'd drive back to work and start cold calling and calling clients as a stockbroker. It was a really wild time in my life.
Well, JT, as important as your opinion and recall of that day is, there's one other person who I would say is probably an equal expert to what that was. And of course, what you remember of that call, your opinion of that call and your performance was key. But the most important opinion of your performance that day actually belongs to somebody else. And I want to just welcome him today, because this day, as much as it is, of course, about your anniversary, it's also a 30-year anniversary, really, for what Jim Rome did on that day and what Jim Rome brought to all of us. And I just got to say, it's so incredible to remember what that was and to know that Jim really put it all together. And here he is. I want to bring Jim into this because it was really about what he did and what he means to this entire industry. And Jim, just welcome to be here with us. I can't tell you what it means to be here for JT, for me. You've obviously been a huge part of certainly both of our careers, but I just wanted to give it to you, Jim, because it really is a 30-year anniversary for the two of you.
Yeah, what's cracking, dudes?
Wow.
Can you see me? Happy anniversary, Brick. What's going on, dude? How you feeling?
Jim, what an unbelievable surprise. What a big day. Looking back 30 years, and what a nice surprise to see you. So I can thank you again out of the gate for maybe the pivotal moment in my life where everything happened after that phone call. Wow.
All right, let me respond to that in a second. Sam, good morning, bro. Sam is also one of the icons of the business. I want to mention him. Yeah, JT, listen, I mean, where do we even start, right? What an amazing day that was. But I want to tell you, and I don't want to be patronizing in any way, but I want to tell you how much I respect you and how much I appreciate you, how much I'm proud of you. Dude, you did what we did back in the day. We were old school types that came up the hard way. Look, we weren't walking to work 10 miles in the snow, but the world was very different. Like right now, you have one of these, you have a show. Not when you and I came up, and you had a really successful career, and you had a passion for sports, and you were a New York guy, but you were killing it as a stockbroker. And when you won that SmackOff, what you did was what I did early on. You burned the boats, man. You went all in. You took a chance. You left money on the table, and you said, you know what? I love this. I want to do this. I'm going to leave that behind, and I'm going to bet on myself. And you pushed everything right to the center of the table, and you did it, dude. And I could not be more proud of you or the fact that there is kind of a Rome tree, but you are right there as one of the strongest branches. So happy 30th anniversary to you, dude. You should be very, very proud of your career because I am.
Well, Jim, that means a lot. And again, a lot happened that day. And, I gravitated to you in your show because it just was absolutely different. We all knew that. I had friends along the way, Raider Mike, other guys. We all started to get together. After I won the SmackOff, you put together that tour stop of 3 different bars that we went to. You sent a limo down. I put 8 of my buddies in it, and they came up with me. And that was the time where I said to myself, because I never dreamed of doing this. I had a nice career, but a couple of people said, you should try to do this, try to do that. And then I kind of did burn the boats, and I moved out to Vegas, and I was doing real overnights, midnight to 5 Pacific time. But what was the break at that moment was because of you and winning that contest, I dropped in on Sports Fan Radio Network, and the first shows I did, I was on KMBR, The Ticket in Dallas, WEEI in Boston, all these unbelievable stations working my style coming off of you on some of the biggest radio shows in America. And then another thing I learned from you, I didn't do this to get on the radio and be heard. I built a business like I have today. I said, who cares if you're on the radio? That's cool. But if you don't survive and knock on doors and find advertisers and talk to sales execs in your building, the portal that opened up with Craig Kitchen and Andrew Ashwood, and they taught me about the business side of it. And Sam, I'll say this about Jim, not only a Hall of Famer on the Mount Rushmore, but Jim was the guy that told us all, if you're going to do this, you got to make money. You got to make a career, provide for your family. And I was able to do that because I understood the business model that he set up. You got to go find the sales. You got to find the affiliates. You got to find the advertising and make a career.
Hey, look, it's a business. The show is the show, and you want to keep the main thing, but it is a business. Understand, I grew up in a family that had a small business. So every single night at the dinner table, I always heard business is business, business is business. My father and mother owned this business. It was a manufacturing firm in the San Fernando Valley, and I had no roots in the entertainment business. I knew nobody in radio. However, I understood the notion of business. So as good as the show was, I mean, the show had to be the thing, but it didn't matter how good the show was if they didn't sell the show, if they didn't clear the show, if you couldn't put food on the table. The other major thing, JT, that I think was really important, and I pride myself on this, I didn't enter on the network level. I started in a small market. I had to fight my way out of Santa Barbara. I can't tell you how many years, how many letters, how many resumes I sent to 690 AM just trying to get in that door, just trying to get that opportunity. So I was proud of myself on that. I fought my way out of a small market and built the thing brick by brick by brick. No pun intended. And even though 690 was a major break for me, we even built that network. We self-syndicated. John Lynch was the one who said, you know what? If the show works this well in Southern California, I think it'll work in other places. And a lot of these other markets were like, no, man, it'll never work. Rome is a SoCal guy. That shtick will never work outside of Southern California. So we started with 4 stations, and then 6, then 8, then 12, until we got to over 200. But my greatest source of pride is I built that thing up, and it was just through grit and hard work and what we're talking about right here, business. Understand the business.
I got to say
Yeah,
one thing here. I just want to jump into this as well with you guys real quick. But Jim, we have to
Good
ask.
morning,
I mean, you
dude.
came
What's
up,
up, Sam? Good
dude.
morning,
It
man.
is so
Good morning.
good to have you, Jim. It is so great to have you both
Much
here
respect.
with me. And I can't even believe how huge this is to have this happen the 30 years. But I want to ask the name, JT the Brick. I mean, he's known now as JT the Brick, and people probably don't really understand that. I mean, talk about what you did. Your show was an entire vocabulary in and of itself, Jim. And part of that was creating this persona for JT. I mean, he's a stockbroker. He's not a character. And you come up with, how did it come to be the Brick?
Okay, but he did become a character on the show,
Yes.
but I mean that in a good way, See, the funny thing about the show was, and the way the SmackOff came to be, my feeling always was, when I came up, I had a different approach and a different show, and people either loved it or they hated it, but they were listening to it, and they were gravitating to it, and then all of a sudden, they had the clones. And this became kind of a derisive thing initially, because what it was just people trying to sound like me and spit out what I was saying, because it was just so different. But I realized soon enough, and I was always a grinder. I was always a worker. I was never afraid of hard work. But what I did realize about this industry early on was that if I entrusted my career and my destiny, and to JT's point, the ability to put food on the table to the callers, I was not going to have a long run, because frankly, no offense to the callers, and we all know this in the business, the percentage of those who listen versus those who call, is very small. But what I recognized there were 10 or 15 or 20 incredible callers and dozens or hundreds of really crappy callers. So if I could just pick the ones that I wanted to call the program, the show would be so much better. But you can't do that. Not every night, but I could do that one day a year, the SmackOff. And if I let them all come in and they all compete for crown of SmackOff or King of Smack for the year, that might be really good for the show. And sure enough, the best of the best came in, and JT was the best of the best on that day. But like I kind of distinguished myself on the show, JT was able to distinguish himself as a caller. He was very aggressive. He was high energy. He was very New York. He made the show better. He made the show sound different. So it was not at all any surprise to me that he won that first SmackOff and parlayed that into something much bigger.
I mean, 30 years, Jim. It's a credit really to you, JT. I want you to say something. And Jim, I know you got to run soon. But I want to say a couple things. I mean, Jim not only revolutionized what happened on radio. I want to give you a chance, Jim, to explain. You're also crushing it now on an entirely different platform on X. I mean, you really, in a way, you stepped into something completely different, in many ways unknown, and are doing exactly what you've been doing for over 30 years now in a platform, like you said, on the phone for people to access you. I just want to hear from you. What has that been like? And let everybody know, remind everybody again, where they are still receiving content from Jim Rome because of what you've been able to do now in an entirely different way on an entirely different stage.
I appreciate that, Sam. For so long in my life, my business life was pretty straightforward. I would do a radio program during the day, and then after the radio program, I would go to a TV show. And for years, it was ESPN, and then for years, it was Fox, then it was years for ESPN, and then it was years for CBS Sports Network. The model was just brick and mortar, right? You wanted to make sure that one of the major media corporations picked you, but then I always had in the back of my mind that I understood that I was the young and upcoming guy, and everybody I interviewed was older than me. And then all of a sudden, I just put my head down, and I look up, and all these years go by, and now all these guys that I interviewed that were older than me are not only retired, but I'm interviewing their kids. Like, dang, I've been around here a long time. And then I look around me, and I've got to be really cognizant. See, one of my strengths was I always understood that I didn't have this superpower. But I was pretty self-aware, and I'm looking around the landscape, and it's changing, and new people are coming in. So where do I fit in? I once said famously, at least in my mind, that the last thing this world's ever going to need, we're YouTube right now, right? I can curse?
Oh, yeah. YouTube.
The last thing we ever need is a 50-year-old shit talker. Like, nobody's going to want that, right? But here I am now at 60, and maybe I talk a little less junk than I used to, but I'm still here. And how do I stay relevant? And how do I make sure that they still come to see me? How do I reinvent? So what I did was I just kind of busted the whole model up all over again. And I'm not sure it'll ever be like it used to be when I came on so strong, but I knew that I had to do it differently. So I was on linear cable my whole life. I'd never streamed before. So now the entire operation is a streaming operation. We're on X live every day for 3 hours. And then I established the Roam Fast channel, which is on 8 other platforms. And that has an exclusive 4th hour. Dudes, I'm going the wrong way. I went from 5 hours to 4 hours to 3 hours. And I'm like, I can get to 2 hours. I can get to 1 hour. I can get to the Roam Minute and make the same amount of money. I'm back up to 4 hours. I'm going, what's next? The Scrub Saturday show? I'm going the wrong way. But it's all about staying relevant. So X, Roam Fast channel, did a deal. The audio deal changed. Now I'm exclusively with Westwood One, who I already had a deal with for about 10 years. They would sell and clear the program. And I'm basically just reinventing and trying to stay relevant because I know one day, guys, they will come to me and say, oh man, we've had enough. Hit the bricks, hit the street, and it'll be fine, man. It'll be fine because it's been a great run, but it's my job to hold that day off as long as possible because I still love it. I still love the grind and I still love the work.
Wow. Well, to wrap this up with Jim, I'll tell you the one thing I wanted to, and kind of nice to see both of you guys today, but Jim, I want you to understand that this to me isn't about radio and what you did for me, because I can never thank you for that. It's about what happened after that. And going on year 29 with the Raiders on Sirius XM Mad Dog now, doing my show in Vegas. What it's about is my family. Our kids are roughly the same age, 23, 21. I meet my wife walking into a Rolling Stone show in Vegas because I win the SmackOff and I start in Vegas with the Pete Rose show, and my life changes and everything happens from there. My dad told me when I was leaving Merrill Lynch, he says, how much are they going to pay you? You're making 6 figures. And I said, $25,000. He said, can you get 30? And I said, well, I met him halfway. And I started, as we said, brick by brick, building it. And one of the other things I learned is Jim just wrapped up doing the 4 or 5 hours a day. Every chance you get to be on a platform, radio, YouTube, X, whatever it is, and have this ability to talk with listeners, callers, and build lifetime relationships is a blessing. And Jim, you opened that portal for me. I can never thank you enough for it. And man, what a shock and nice surprise today. 30 years ago today, I won the SmackOff and it changed my life. And you had everything to do with it. Thank you so much.
My man, listen, happy anniversary to you, JT. I want to be so clear about this. You were good for our program, and maybe you use that as an impetus or a springboard. But dude, you did all this. You really don't have anything to thank me for. You heard a radio program. You liked the radio program. You wanted to participate in that radio program. We both benefited from that. You got a little dopamine. I got better content. But let's be very clear about this, dude. You did all the work. You had your own vision. You put in the time. This great life and career that you created for yourself and those around you, you did on your own. So I am really, really proud of you. And I'm proud that we have such a good relationship and such a good connection because, man, there's enough to go around. There's enough to go around. You do not have to be a bad person to succeed in this business or this world, man. Just go to work, man. Get up early, go to work long days, and do things the right way and treat people the right way. So I just want to get that little editorial blast in there, but couldn't be happier for you, man. And I appreciate the invite so much. And Sam, you too, dude. You're also one of the legends of the business. You guys are lucky to have each other, and I appreciate the time so much. And JT, happy anniversary, dude. You earned all of it.
Thanks, Jim. All the best to you, Janet, and the family, man. Thank you so much.
Jim, thanks again. Thank you so much, Jim. And a tip of the cap to Travis Rogers also, right? I mean, I think he was the one that thought SmackOff might have some play, and you and him worked it and really ironed it out, Jim, to make this happen. So
hey, listen, that and I think we're all aware of this. And JT, you can speak to this. We're as good as we are produced, and you always want to surround yourself with really good people. I've got an amazing producer right now in Tommy D. You've got a great producer right there. I've always been well produced. So yes, here to that.
Awesome, Jim. Have a great day.
That's part of the tree. That's part of the tree that we talked about. It starts with Jim. I'm a limb of the tree, and one of the proudest things that I have in my life is all the people I've worked with. They didn't work for me. They worked with me, and I continue to do that today. And you said a good point, man. Everybody should be happy because got a lot out of this and a lot more to come, man. So thanks again on 30, man. Appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.
And we're not done yet, dude. Let's commit to each other right now. We're not done yet, man. Let's go. Let's go. There's work to be done.
Jim, thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. There you go. Wow. What a moment, JT, huh?
Look at you. You're like a little surprise artist here, man. Look at you. That meant a lot because, there's not enough I could say about that moment with Jim. When I won the SmackOff, I was a little bit immature. And, I went from winning the SmackOff not to calling the show anymore. I was one and done. And then, what was interesting about the next stage is I go after Sports Fan Radio Network in Vegas. I end up at Premier Radio Networks with Craig Kitchen, Tom Lee, who hired me, man, Tom Lee, who was an icon in Seattle on KJR. And the next thing you know, I'm going to Christmas parties with Jim Rome. And in the room at those Christmas parties, and Craig put these Christmas parties together that were at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Legendary parties.
You're in the room looking at Dr. Laura, Rush Limbaugh, Jim Rome, the Fox crew and all that. So, for Jim, Jim's a private guy. I'm not a private guy. Jim's very private with his family and life. And that's smart because, he's got a big life. But, it's important that we just had that moment because 30 years ago, if he doesn't have that contest or invite me, none of this happens. When I say none of it happens, maybe I get an inkling to get into media or sports, possibly. But I was going down a road at that, my stockbrokering career was coming to an end. I started off like Wolf of Wall Street, the movie Boiler Room. If you go watch the movie Boiler Room, not Wolf of Wall Street, Boiler Room was about my crew. And not only my crew, my really crew within the crew. That movie was my life. And that path was closing. I went legit, Smith Barney and Merrill Lynch. But, I went into real estate and the real estate market crashed. The stock market crashed when I started in 87. I didn't have many swings left at home plate. It was like the bottom of the 8th inning and I was 4th on deck. And I had to hope someone got on base to give me an opportunity. And that's the way I talk about it. It was a big opportunity.
Well, JT, of course, 30 years ago, to take yourself back to that moment is incredible. And by the way, for those that haven't read it, if you really want to know, if you're interested in JT, if you're watching on his channel, The Handoff, this book right here, do yourself a favor. If you want to know more about JT's life, read this book because it's about the incredible relationship that you had with someone who meant a lot. And I meant to ask Jim about it as well. But Andrew Ashwood was a program director who got in your ear early on, meant a ton to Jim's career, really was huge in both Miami and San Antonio, WOAI. And he helped forge so much of your career. And this book is about that relationship. The Handoff, which is an awesome book by you, really is not only you coming through that portal of Jim, but then finding Andrew and forging the next steps of your career. But so much of the book, as I'm rereading a lot of it over the course of the last few days, realizing that it's 30 years coming up, the name that came up again and again, and you talk about relationships, your best friend, talk about Jim Baxter. Talk about Jimmy B. This is Jimmy B goes back with you all the way back to New York. He's with you in San Diego. He's through all of this with you. And, part of this is the idea that you've got a dream in your head that you can do this. If I can win this contest, what does it mean for me? Does it prove that I can actually do this? And those friends, and of course, yes, and look, there's Brad Flipsy and Bobby G, and I know so much of the crew, JD Crow back in the day, but there was something about Jimmy B also specifically because his name comes up again and again in this book. He was, in a way, that Tinkerbell that you needed on your shoulder to talk you through really being able to do this.
Yeah, well, we both decided to move. He was a successful guy out of college like I was. I was in stocks. He was selling copier machines. We were doing this. We were best friends since we were in first grade, but we both decided to move out west roughly at the same time. We were both hitting burnout. I was hitting burnout hard because the lifestyle I was living as a stockbroker was very aggressive. It was 16 hours a day, 300 cold calls a day, after a full day of work, going out partying with 200 guys, coming back at 6 a.m, throwing the tie on and doing it again. And when we both hit the wall, we decided we were going to move west. And we both had that conversation with our parents, and it was hard. And, I have 2 sons. And the moment that I went to my mom and dad, we didn't give them a lot of time because we knew it wasn't going to go over well. But Jimmy and I both told our parents, we're moving out west. We're done in New York. We want to give it a shot. And I'll never forget Jimmy and I sitting there looking at a map, and he points to the Bay Area and he says, what about this? And I said, a little too cold. And then he points to LA and he says, what about that? I go, no, too crowded. And then he points to San Diego, and we both look at each other and say, yeah, let's go. And we took a van trip cross country, which was a big part of my life. And we landed in Mission Beach. And that's where I had, transferred as a stockbroker and started bringing my friends out west. That was one of the things that really had a big pivotal part of my career too, long before being a radio host, is once I got out west and planted the flag with Jimmy and my buddy Bobby G and my buddy Hawk, and all my friends started coming out and saying, oh my God, it was like you went from black and white television to color. You're on the beach in La Jolla and in Pacific Beach going, wow, we could live out here. We can get an apartment. We could be at the beach every day and go to the Lahaina Beach House and have beers at sunset and do all that. And then we were kind of like a Pied Piper, Jimmy and I, and everybody started coming out. But we both had to make a living. And we both had parents that weren't going to let us F around and sit on the beach for a couple of years. And that's when it all started. That's when the journey began. And luckily for me, I wouldn't say lucky, but there was a lot of luck to it. The fact that I was listening to Jim and listening to sports radio, and I found that time from 9 to noon or noon to 3, whatever it was back then. Wow, because that hit my eardrum and said, ooh, this is good. This is something I like. I want to participate, and the rest is history.
Well, not only is it history, but Jimmy B, Jim Baxter, your best friend, he's here with us as well today, JT. And what a moment. I mean, Jimmy was in your ear for all of that. And I just want to say hello to the great and famous in my world, Jimmy B, who I heard about from our early days together. And he's here with us. Jimmy B, the best friend to JT, the right-hand man that he needed to really understand that he could do this through the entire thing. Hello and welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. JT, congratulations. Proud of you. Great to see Jim Rome, and much the way Jim Rome was able to brand JT the Brick. Sam, with all due respect, I hope I'm not branded Tinkerbell now. I would have maybe been Butcher or Sundance would have been maybe, but we can clean that up in the edit, I suppose. But great to see you, and I'm so happy that you're doing it with JT. You've been such a loyal friend and producer, and this is a great day, great memory.
Absolutely. JT, your best friend, Jimmy B. I mean, you try to recount what it was like for you two to be there and what Jimmy really said to you, because I remember so much of the fact that Jimmy was the one that said, you can do this. You can make a career out of this.
Yeah, he definitely believed in me, and he knew my whole story, and he knew my struggles and the good times, and most of them were always good times. But at that point, I remember, being at the condo that I lived in, and Jimmy coming back when I won with Mike C and John Butler and all my buddies who showed up that day. And I remember a big hug from him. And again, he believed in me. This wasn't a moment, Sam, where it was like, oh, I won the SmackOff, I'm going to be in radio tomorrow. This was, hey, man, let's party. We won this thing. Everything's really cool. We're celebrating. We're popping beers. We're having a lot of fun. But, then Jimmy was a sounding board for me when I said, look, I'm going to end up following this. I'm going to try to do something with it. And then eventually leaving him and leaving Bobby and all my friends and moving to Vegas and leaving my best friends behind me to try to do this overnight radio thing and get a start.
Amazing. And Jimmy, what do you remember about JT making that transition? He's a successful stockbroker and he thinks he's going to make it. And you're the one telling him, let's do it. You obviously believe it, but there's a part of it that he actually has to do it. What did you know about him at that time that you just had that foresight to say, dude, go for it. Chips are all in. If you got to borrow money from your dad, whatever it takes, let's make it happen.
I think that, just to bring back memories of the day, I could remember, the call was solid, but we had to let the whole radio program play out, right? We didn't know who was going to come in. So there was kind of a feeling as the day went on of excitement that, our guys got a really good shot to win this, and that, what Jim Rome said was really important. And for some of the younger listeners, there was you couldn't go self-promote yourself and be on, out in the universe instantly with any take or soundbite. You didn't have that access. It just wasn't there. So it was really exciting. And then when ultimately, the news came, it was a big deal for us. It was as for guys like us from where we were from, for our friend to achieve that, we were really all very proud and very excited. And, like JT said, not really thinking much past that, but, as someone that has been there since elementary school, I think JT's with his work ethic and his communication skills and his passion and his loyalty, he was going to be successful in whatever he chose to do. But when you have a God-given talent, which I don't talk like this too much about JT, but he knows I believe in him. And it is a God-given talent. It's a charisma, it's a passion, it's a turn of phrase that sometimes the man and the moment just meet, and it was in a butterfly theory. Maybe the things that happened have been tremendous, including you and stuff, but he was the man for the time. And it was a great achievement. And I couldn't be prouder of everything that's happened and the people that have come into our lives and the, great family that he's built, and he's done it all with grace and humility. So I'm really proud of him in every way you can be with a friend.
Jimmy B. Wow. Well, thank you for being here, Jimmy B. You're a huge part of the story. And JT, obviously just give your friend a kiss on the cheek. I mean, he sort of, he was that extra boost that you needed at that time.
Yeah, and if we can greenlight the movie, I have some ideas who can play the Jimmy B character.
I think this podcast will be the first start of this in this stream. I'll talk to you later today like we talk every day. Thanks for doing this.
Congratulations, Sam. You've always been a class act, and I appreciate everything you've done. So love you guys.
Thanks, Jimmy B. We love you, man. We love you. Wow. The great Jimmy B, huh? That's a big one. I know that he was
just
a huge
got
part
back.
of it.
Yeah, he just got back from a long trip. He went to Tokyo. He went to Malaysia, Singapore. He's a world traveler, best friend. He does a lot. And, probably the longest we went in our entire life without talking. We texted because he was on the other side of the world, and he got back yesterday as I was driving from Scottsdale with my wife back. We visited my 21-year-old who's about to graduate from ASU. So we caught up, and I was able to hear about his trip. And I'm proud of him, man. He's seeing the world. He's traveling. He helps out other people. He had a great documentary film that he put out. He's a great musician. Just Google Jim Baxter to see all his great music. So I'm very proud of him and very surprised that he's part of this today. Not shocked and surprised knowing you, but that was that hit me right in the heart. Thanks, Sam.
Well, good, JT. I know what Jimmy means over the years. We've been to many Super Bowl trips with Jimmy, and I know how he's part of the story. And your crew, as you told Jim, you're able to take your friends with you to the tour stops, and they were such a big part of it. And Jimmy through the entire thing. And obviously, we're going to get to it. The Bay Area, what it means, JT. You made this transition from New York to Las Vegas to the Bay Area. We even get all the way back to Las Vegas. We'll get into that. But what the Bay Area meant. The key to the Bay Area in your career is so crucial. And I thought of someone, I said, what represents the Bay Area for JT? What really, really solidifies it? I mean, your career in 29 years with the Raiders and what that was and what that did, not only for your career, for you and me together, for starting there, 1999, some of those incredible memories. I mean, we don't need to go relive the Tuck rule and whatnot, but I mean, there was so much there. And I just thought, who is it that really solidifies? If I could pinpoint it on one face, on one name, on one person, who says Bay Area, JT, Ticket 1050, hardest working man in radio. And it dawned on me. It was so simple. It was so perfect. And to know what Coach Gruden was for your career, to know what John Gruden was for you, man, and what he meant to me and you. I mean, we sat in that room waiting for Coach Gruden, that weekly interview with Coach Gruden early on when no one knew. He was not an icon and a legend back then. He was the new Raiders head coach. That was it, right? And Coach, look at what you meant to his career, what he meant to your career. We're talking 2 separate stints at the Raiders head coach where you two came together, talking to each other when you were and think about this, Coach, when you were with the Bucks and you win that Super Bowl against basically JT and that Raiders team, because JT was right there with Callahan and the boys. I mean, Coach, can you just go back and relive what it meant to be in the early days of what was your coaching career, also some of the early days of JT's coaching career? What was it like to kind of grow up with JT in those early days in that first stint with the Raiders?
Well, it was hard, man. His image was so big. I mean, it was hard for guys like me to get any attention. I mean, JT the Brick, it's hard to get on this show. So many people saluting you today for 30 years of greatness, brother. But back in 1998, it was 2 young guys just trying to make it. I don't think people realize we were nobodies. We were just trying to make it. And we were trying to make it with the Raiders under Al Davis, the most, I think, universal franchise in football. But What an iconic voice he has. What an iconic creativity he has. And it's no secret that he's become a great, fixture in broadcasting and radio. And I just ask you this, JT, as Al Davis would say, the greatness of JT the Brick is in the future. What are you going to do next, man? That's what I want to know. Love you, brother.
I mean, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next? Look at you. I mean, look at what you're doing. Every time I open up my phone, I got my guy doing unbelievable things. Sam, this means so much because, that portal of going to the Bay Area with Tony Salvador and Bruce Allen. And then I get hired the same day as Coach Gruden, the same year that we draft Charles Woodson. And I'll never forget him coming into Silver and Black Productions, our little back studio. And it's me and George Atkinson. And we do his first interview as the head coach. And he doesn't know technically which camera to look in. And then I'm watching him years later, and he's the king of Monday Night Football, all the success, Super Bowl, and he's media savvy. And I go, remember when? But this gentleman had such a big impact on my life, too, because he believed in me. When I was brand new and I was working it out, he's playing some pranks on me, but we always had a love for each other, man. And Coach, we talk, and when I get a chance to see you on the road, which is not often enough, man, you had a big impact on my life. If I don't win that Jim Rome SmackOff, I don't meet John Gruden. I don't work with the Raiders. I don't have this life, and you had a big part of it. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, man, I'm only here because of you. You're not only a good friend of mine, but you really do a great job pumping football and sports into people. And we all need sports, man. But it's the enthusiasm, it's the delivery, it's the excitement in your voice, and it's the knowledge that you have. I think that combination is what separates you. And I'm planning on the comeback, just so you know. I've been down here. I got my fist rolled up. I've been working now. So you tell everybody out there in Vegas, Gruden's coming back. He's coming for you too, man. I'll be coming for you, JT.
Hey, last thing on this. I was in my garage with my wife about a month ago and going through some old boxes and finding a treasure trove. Sammy, I'm going to be sending Coach Gruden a box. He's got that box cutter, and he's going to open up that JT the Brick box and see some things in there that are going to bring back some unbelievable memories. But, Coach, no one believes that you have this unbelievable arc, and your wife and your kids and what you're able to do. But I know how many people you help along the way, and you helped me, and you really were there for me. And I know we have a future together, just being friends. And you're a friend of mine, man, and I love you. And I really appreciate you doing this for me today. Thank you.
Well, hey, I love you too. And I appreciate all you do for all of us sports fans. And 30 more years is what we need out of you. So let's freaking go, brother. Love you, man.
I love this. And Coach, I just want to remind everyone, Coach, look, this is over your shoulder, by the way, because you do tremendous content at Barstool, and there's a great clip of you, and in your office, you still have, this is from the year Gruden is hired with the Raiders, and JT, you are blowing up. You're on the radio 8 hours a day on the Ticket 1050 at this time in your life. All right, JT? So you are as much the face of the Ticket 1050 as anything else. This is KMBR's sister station, KMBR 680 in the Bay Area, a blowtorch, and the sister station 1050 is the Raider station. Coach, do you recognize that guy? I mean, look at that.
I love that, man. KMBR, I used to go up there to see Salvador once or twice a year, and it was really cool to be a part of that. And then on the way back to the office, I would stop and have maybe 6 Anchor steamed beers, whatever they are. But those were the greatest days of my life. I was first-time head coach around some really cool people. And the Raider alumni, I think JT should probably just talk about that. Playing golf with Jack Tatum and hanging out with Jim Plunkett, meeting the Snake. Freddie Bolitnikoff and Willie Brown were on my staff, and going to work every day, having Al Davis challenge you. Those are the greatest days ever.
Yeah, and I speak to Fred every day. Every day I talk to Fred, and George Atkinson, his vision hangs in my office here, and everyone that I've met through the Raiders and the people that I've met along the way, life-defining. I mean, Mark Davis, I knew Mark Davis when he wasn't the owner, and he was flying on Southwest to the games to meet Mrs. Davis and Mr. Davis, and we'd meet in the lobby. And look at what Mark Davis has done to my life. Mark Davis has given me almost a 30-year life that started with Coach Gruden and Bruce and all that. But, one last thing, Coach, with that billboard, because Coach was working in Alameda, man. Gannon was trying to beat him to the office. They were getting there at 5:30. But when you did come over the Bay Bridge, not the Golden Gate Bridge, that was the first billboard, and it was there for about a year. Yeah. And I was like, holy crap, because I had to commute back and forth to Oakland. And I'd come over that, and I'd see Coach Gruden staring over the city of San Francisco. Just listen, baby. And, man, did we all listen, because the Raider Nation was completely united, and the black hole. And that's something special, Coach. And, again, you had such a big part of that and our radio life together. But continue the Barstool stuff and everything you do. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I think that's going to break the internet, Sammy.
Well, you guys keep up the great work. And I'm always here if you need me, my friend. I'll be listening. I'm a huge Raider fan, just so you know. I can't wait for this draft. I'm excited to see what Pete Carroll does. And my son is still on the staff as a strength coach there. So I'm really fired up to see Geno Smith. They have the quarterback they're familiar with, and I'm anxious to follow him. It'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
Well, Coach, before you go, I just wanted to bring someone else.
Oh, look at the Hall of Famer.
Look at this, JT's new partner in crime.
Yeah,
wow.
People wonder why we won some games. I mean, how about having two Hall of Fame cornerbacks? We got Rich Gannon, Tim Brown, and Jerry Rice, Steve Wisniewski. Congratulations, EA. I can't wait to see you go in this summer, man. What a freaking great day it's going to be.
Yeah, it's been a blast. And just listening to you guys the last couple of minutes has been awesome. Coach, I love you. That first day in Alameda when we were kind of talking back and forth about those days in Philadelphia, and JT and I have been kind of sewn to the hip this last 4 or 5 years. Just a great group, and you guys are definitely right about all those things you say about Raider Nation and just football in general. It just brings people together, and it's nothing like the game. And just kind of, I'm still riding on cloud nine, Coach.
Well, you should be. I mean, not many guys have done what you did on the grass. And I'll be honest with you, EA. I think the Raiders might be taking a corner in this draft somewhere. What do you think of that?
Yeah, the kid out of Michigan is amazing. He had a couple injuries at the end of his junior year, but up until that point, he's been playing some fantastic football. And again, because he went to Michigan, people are gonna, talk a lot about the relationships and with him and Charles, but they're two totally different players. Will Johnson is a bona fide superstar. He's going to be a really good player in this league, and possible if we can get him, I think that would really add to the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders.
Look at you guys. Eric Allen and JT the Brick on the same call. No disrespect, Sam, but I'm like totally starstruck right here. This is freaking awesome, Matt.
No, well, Coach, I got to tell you, look, the thread of what EA is and you. I mean, look, I got my career started in the Bay Area, and my dad is from Philly. I'm a lifelong diehard Eagles fan. So to have the two of you here together and all of this, it's amazing. But Coach, we will let you go. All right. Thank you for being here to celebrate 30 years of JT in this industry, 30 years winning the SmackOff and becoming this legend that he has been. Thank you for being a huge part of this journey, Coach. And we know we will be seeing so much more. You keep it up at Barstool, and we will see you soon out in Vegas. All right.
All right. God bless you guys. Great to see your faces.
Soon,
if I can ever help, I'll be here. See you.
No doubt,
Love
Coach.
you,
Thank you so much. Look at that. Look, Coach, come on.
Wait
Your new
second.
partner.
Wait a second. I mean, Coach Gruden, lifetime friend, but this guy, you know how many times in the last 4 years or 5 years, I've interviewed him, finalist, semifinalist, finalist. And now my guy, the Hall of Famer, about to get that gold jacket, my brother, EA, great to see you.
Oh, man, great to be here, man. We're in there now. We're in there, JT. Just so many great times. First, that year of COVID, when we were in that stadium, lonely, by ourselves. We can hear every call that Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Josh, all those guys were making. We were the only ones in the stadium. And I go back to that first first year. And yes, it was challenging, but I think that really brought our whole crew really together. And there were some meaningful times and just great opportunities for us to talk ball, but just get to know each other on a much deeper level. And it just, from that point on, it's just been great. You've just been an asset to the world of football, the knowledge, the passion, the being able to bring all those Raider fans all over the world together. And those days at the Torch, man, if you haven't been there to the fan wise, if you guys haven't been to the Torch pregame to check out JT's Corner, man, you got to get there if you're a big time Raider fan, because everybody who listens to the shows, who listens to the JT over the course of 30 years shows up there and really talks a lot about what JT means to them.
Well, I'll tell you, Sam, what an honor I have. You know, I covered Eric's career. I started in 98 with the Raiders, and to watch Eric play along with Rod Woodson and Jerry Rice and Tim Brown and Ridge Gannon, my first 4 years with the Raiders, we went to 2 AFC championship games and went to a Super Bowl. I thought that was going to be every year. And there's been some unbelievable years and some ups and downs. But since we've come to Vegas and I got the call that, you know, Eric's going to be my partner and I'm going to be his partner on the pre and post game show, what a journey that's been. He mentioned we do the first year with no one. We're one of like 9 people in the stadium, and we can hear Tom Brady call the plays as we're in the press box. And believe me, we weren't allowed to go into the crowd. We got let go. So we're sitting up there listening, and then we have to tell the story of this. And now that the fans came back, and I'm not just saying this, there's 32 football teams, and 32 of them have a pregame show.
Yeah.
We have it in Vegas at the Torch with the casino corridor behind us, the stadium in front of us, on a stage, the largest bar west of Austin, Texas. And we're sitting there with Raider Nation, and now EA is going to come back for the first game as a Hall of Famer. And look, dude, this isn't about me. 30 years ago, you're a San Diego guy. I won the SmackOff in San Diego and lived here for 8 years. So we got that San Diego connection today.
Yeah, that vibe is strong, JT, and all those great opportunities that we have each and every week, calling those games, you know, having guys talking to Max Crosby, one of the best players in the National Football League. You know, he sees you, gives you a big hug. He sees me, it's high fives. All those great Raider players that come every single week, the alumni, they all come by, and we all get an opportunity to talk with them and kind of give them you know, their flowers and their shine and how they feel about the team. That's one of the great things about our job. And for me, it's not a job. It's been a passion. I wanted to be on this side of the business since I was, you know, 17, 18 years old in high school. I wanted to talk about the game I love. Just fortunate enough to be able to play it for a long time. And in those 4 years with the Raiders were some of the best football times ever, you know, to be able to mentor a guy like Charles Woodson, be on the same football field as Jerry Rice and see how he practiced and Tim Brown and all those great players, Wisniewski. It was just an amazing, great time in our lives to be able to play football, play in the black hole, and, you know, years later be able to talk about the Raider and the way that people look at the Raiders from the outside.
Well, Eric, I just want to say, I mean, you made that transition. You transitioned from a Hall of Fame player into a broadcaster, and JT was a Hall of Fame level stockbroker and transitioned to broadcasting. I mean, there's a synergy between the two of you. You know, I mean, I think about what that's like, that change in your lifestyle, the way that JT did it and made it happen. And I know you did the same.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think the Raiders are unique in the aspect of when you're in another industry and you're successful and you're able to kind of cross over football wise, the Raiders are a little unique because the fan base is, you know, they're so passionate and they always are going to be there and represent and support you. And if you give them good stuff, they're going to ride with you forever. And I think that's the one thing. They will give you that response almost immediately, you know, good or bad, which is good. So it's just like football for me. You play a game, you get graded at the end of the game, and on Monday you get the grade. Same thing with the Eagles, with the Raiders, excuse me. You get that grade. If they don't like what you're talking about, you either got to change or you got to show why you have that view. And I think that's one of the great things about being our business is it's still an opportunity to be able to produce and then find out the results on the next day.
Amazing.
Well, Sam, let me jump in quick on this as him as a broadcaster. From his career, when you saw him as he left the game and then went into broadcasting at the highest level, to know that I get to work with him, a pro's pro. We talked to Coach Gruden. He started with no broadcast experience. And at one point, Coach Gruden was the #1 sports media talent in all of sports. And wow. And EA was already successful as a broadcaster and then decided to enter this portal as a Raider broadcaster. So I get a chance to see him every weekend, home or on the road, wherever it's happening with the Raiders. And I'm a better man for this because I know him as a husband, as a dad, as a leader in his community and what he's done. So you want to talk about a lucky guy. I get a chance to tee him up, ease keys, the three keys to the game. And I think EA, with the new regime, the new coaching staff, better times are ahead, but it starts in August in Canton, Ohio, man. And I know you're prepping, and I know that bust is being made. I know that jacket's going to fit, and you're going to have some side drip to wear to your party and all this. I just can't wait to be there.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the first ones. You know, the email should be going out this week. Know you're going to be there representing. And I tell you, when you talk about this whole kind of process, I've been leaning on guys, talking to Marcus Allen a lot. Of course, we'll be at Freddie B's in a couple weeks, and I'm pretty sure I'll get a lot of good intel there. But I'm just super excited, and to finally be able to have all those people who poured into me during the course of my career, you know, represented there in Canton. We're gonna have a great time, and just getting ready for the draft, though. Draft's coming up here, and so really excited about what the Raiders are going to be looking like the 2025 season.
Eric, thank you so much for being here, man. The Hall of Famer, everybody. I mean, his Eagles certainly dominated the Super Bowl. EA is a huge part of that legacy as well. And we love you being here and taking a part of this 30-year celebration of an epic career, and certainly your career on the field and now off. Eric, thank you so much. This has been not only, I'm sure, a beautiful honor for JT, but for me as well. Thank you, Eric, for being here.
All right. Congratulations, JT, man. I love you guys. Take care.
Love you too, man. Love you. Wow, you're just as like this is your life.
But JT. I mean, look, the Raiders are a huge part of it. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, to talk about that, and so I want to kind of bring you back to that moment. So let's go back. I mean, you win in San Diego, you get on the radio, you're paying to be on the radio your first days. I mean, can we get, I want you to be able to tell that story a little bit also. I mean, you win the SmackOff with Jim. We talked to Jim a few minutes ago about what it was, what his show meant at that time, but it's not as if you just won the SmackOff and then radio stations all over the country are calling you like, hey man, you got to come host our show. No, you had to put in the work. You had to reach out. It was essentially just like cold calls for stockbroking. You had to, if you were basically selling JT as a stock, what was it like to get that first? How did you truly crack? Because there is a transition. It's not just, you didn't just win and end up on the radio the next day. There's a huge gap to still have to bridge there. How did you do it?
Wow, great question. That's really the story. So I win the SmackOff, and all I have is a cassette tape of the call. That's it. I don't have a radio show. So I'm asking people, how do I get involved with this? I send the cassette to the Mighty 690, this and that. But then I realized there was a radio station in Pasadena, 107.9 KMAX. And they're in Pasadena. And I cold called the guy who was running the station. And I said, can I come up and meet you? And longer story short, he says, yeah. He goes, I got this time slot on Sunday nights from 7 to 10 p.m. in deep Pasadena. So I'm in La Jolla. And I start driving up Sundays in traffic to get to Pasadena to do this show. There's no internet. There's nothing. So there's no way to get sports other than to read the newspaper. And I did a 3-hour show. Now, the problem is they needed $400 a show.
Not giving you $400. You had to pay $400 to be on the air.
I had to pay $400. So luckily at the time, I went back to my stockbrokering roots, didn't know anybody. So I called brick companies And Higgins Brick Company in LA picked up the phone, and the guy knew me. He knew I won the SmackOff. And I'm talking to him, and I'm saying, look, I'm looking to do this radio show. You can be the sponsor. I need $500 a week. The guy's like, no problem. And I end up getting $500 so I can pay the difference. Now, Sammy, you'll love this story. I'm writing a check, putting it in the slot of a safe on Sunday night when I'm done. I got to drive 2.5 hours home to be a stockbroker Monday morning at 6:30. Turns out that station was about to go under. The guy wasn't cashing the checks. He wasn't even opening up the safe. So I was pocketing just a small amount of money. But at the time, I knew the station was kind of falling apart, and I called Dave Sniff, another big arc of my life. He was the program director of KFMB in San Diego, and he's now the producer of the Raiders on their great radio broadcast, play-by-play, pre and post. He's one of my bosses. And Dave said, I'll give you that same shift on Sunday night. And I was able to go from Pasadena to Sunday night. And it was about 8 or 9 weeks from there. Charlie Barker, the program director of Sports Fan Radio Network, heard a couple of my shows and offered me the overnights in Vegas. So it happened pretty quick. And my first ever show was Memorial Day, 1996 on Sports Fan Radio Network, starting the overnight from midnight to 5 a.m. And then just to move the story forward, I got my big break because Charlie said, hey, Pete Rose is looking for a co-host. He was the big star on the channel. And they said, we're not going to pay you. And I said, I don't care. I need to host that show. And then Pete entered my life. And for a year, probably about 14 months, I co-hosted the Pete Rose Show and was using Pete's black book to call Henry Aaron, Nolan Ryan, Mike Schmidt. And that was another big portal and arc, was the all-time hit king, Pete Rose.
And let's talk about one other thing. We spoke about it with Jim about the name, JT the Brick. And Rome truly is the one that crowned that based on your love of the Knicks. But one other nickname that only came from one person, and I heard it plenty of times on the phone. We used to see him at Sicily when we'd walk over for lunch across the street. We had him on the radio a few times, and what a shame that he's not here with us today. But Bricker. Bricker was a nickname that one person gave you. It stuck with him and him only. You didn't hear it from anyone. But talk about Pete. Just go back to that moment where Pete Rose meets you. You meet him for the first time, and then eventually he's calling you Bricker, and you are his guy.
Yeah, I was his guy for a short period of time because he had a lot going on. He had the Ballpark Cafe in Florida. He was coming out here doing events, and he was big, and he gambled a lot. He would sit there at the MGM, and he was betting the ponies and the dogs and focus on that. But he really cared about his radio show, and he only wanted the A-list guest on. He only wanted the kings of baseball, and I would basically call him. I'd do that and get him on the air and then let Pete talk, and I would reset and tease the next guest and all that. But, as we just had Coach Gruden, Pete Rose believed in me. Pete Rose did 2 or 3 shows with me, and he's like, you're good. I finally have a partner. And he had other partners that were good hosts, but he believed in me. And that was really big. And then Pete ended up living out in Vegas the whole time, and we'd bump into each other at restaurants, and I'd call him. He'd come in studio. And God, I'll tell you this story quickly. Right before Pete passed, there was a convention for sports over at Virgin Hotels, the former Hard Rock, and Pete was there. And I walked in with my son, who's in the business now as an aspiring sports agent. And my son met Pete when he was a little boy, but he hadn't seen him in 20 years or 15 years. And I walked over to Pete and I said, Pete, my son, John. They walked away. They walked away for about 5 minutes and spoke. And then my son came back to me. That's the last time I saw Pete. Pete ended up dying. And that was the last time I saw him. And I can't tell you what peace I had come over me, knowing that I didn't say goodbye to Pete. I didn't think he was going to die in 2 months. But to know that the last time I met him, he was with my son, who I'm so proud of, who has a lot to do with this with you today. That was really important to me. And Pete Rose, I would not be here today if it wasn't for the all-time hit king. I love Pete. He had a big impact on my life, Sammy.
Well, not only Pete, but someone else who had a huge impact. I want to talk about the call that you made to Jim And I want you also to talk about, we all play catch with our dad in the backyard, thinking that one day we're going to be playing ball, or we practice what we're going to be doing with our dad, and our dad kind of fuels that forward. We had Jim Baxter on here to talk about your best friend in the world at that time, urging you to do this. At one time, you thought you were going to have to borrow money from your dad. You told Jim the story about how Sports Fan offers you 25 grand, and your dad helps you bump it to 27.5 to make you just feel like you won at least a little something. Give me a little bit about what it was like. What was your dad in your ear in that time, and of course still today?
Well, my dad was everything, and my mom. I mean, they always believed in me, and I wasn't always easy to believe in. I was taking a lot of chances in life. I moved away. I moved out west. I'm a stockbroker. I'm trying to get into real estate. I call my parents. I'm like, I won this caller contest. What would they know? They didn't know the Jim Rome show and that. They weren't listening. And, then I got to drop the bomb on them. Then I'm going to leave my career, which is it's a pretty big backbone in my life, to go all in on radio. And if my dad didn't give me the support at the time, if my dad didn't say, I have your back, if my dad didn't say, go for this, I got you, I don't think I'd do it. I mean, I might do it, but I don't go in it with an open mind to get an apartment and live in Vegas and try to build this thing up from scratch. So my mom and dad, they weren't the type of mom and dad who said, get back home, it's not working, we don't believe in you. They were always encouraging me to go farther and farther. And it was dicey. And again, I mentioned it earlier. At that point, before I won the SmackOff, it was really close to me having to make a decision on what I was going to do the rest of my life. And fortunately, I won that caller contest.
Well, it was humongous. And you talked about, not only your dad, but obviously your son, Johnny, as well. And so, everyone's got that lineage, the name, John and Johnny and John Turnauer, and for what your son is doing now, Johnny, who not only helps run the YouTube page, I mean, he is going to be a major player in the world of sports management. And I certainly wanted to bring him in here today. I mean, Johnny's a big part of this story. And Johnny, I mean, it's huge. The lineage that this is so incredible. And I just can't believe what your dad has done. I mean, think about it. He didn't even know your mom when this happened, and it all comes to be. And your career, essentially, not only your career, I mean, obviously your life is sort of forged from this moment, but your career as well. I mean, what did it mean for you to have your dad who wins this contest? And then not only are you obviously a sports fan, but because of your dad, you're in the sports industry now. What was that like? What do you remember of friends and everyone telling you about the call? And then how has that shaped who you are?
Oh, it's been crazy. It's the biggest blessing. Like I tell my dad all the time, he's given me everything. So it's been a crazy, I don't know. All I can remember growing up is going to Dodger games in LA, going to Raider games all the time. So it's been crazy just to see it, and especially what we're doing now. He connected me with my mentor, Jamie Fritz. So it's like I give it all to him for that. And then everything we've been able to do the last couple of years, start and stream. I know it's been a kind of crazy ride. And then everything we've done, it's been a cool little ride, cool little journey, especially watching it pretty close up and seeing how hard he works. It's been awesome for sure.
Well, I mean, Johnny, I just want to say, I mean, look, this is how I knew Johnny, JT. Yeah. All right. I mean, this is in the early days of me producing you when it first started at Fox Sports Radio. And Johnny, I mean, you must be, what are you, maybe 4 in that picture?
Now? Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean,
like
and look,
years ago.
Dude, look at you now and what you've done. And JT, I want to just give you the opportunity to look at your son here, to know what he is today, what he's done, and how your radio career brought him from this moment, holding the stuffed animal, into what he is and who he's become today.
Well, it's all him. I mean, the guy loves sports. He's passionate. He's a hard worker. He graduated from Oklahoma on time and on budget, which is tough to do. And, had some COVID years that he had to fight through with school and all that. So I'm super proud of him and my other son, Jason. They're just the pride and joy of my life. And they're just great kids. Whenever you're a dad and you got a great wife, you want your kids to be successful, safe. You want them to have great lives, and they're both on Pats. And, the reason why John can hang out in the rooms that he does with all these really important Hall of Famers and Heisman Trophy winners is because of guys like you, Sam. He grew up on the sideline. He grew up, at 4 or 5 years old and 8 years old, hanging out in Fred Biletnikoff and Mark Davis's box at a Raider game. So he wasn't starstruck by everybody. He doesn't walk into a room and say, hey, I need a selfie. Can I get an autograph? He acts like the guy who's been in the room before. And I'm just proud of their success. Whatever they do in life, kind of similar to what my dad told me, whatever you do in life, We're always going to have your back. Just work hard, care about other people, outwork everybody, show up early, leave late. And he's doing that. And I'm excited to see what happens next. He's doing great things.
Well, how about 4 generations of John Turnow? How about 3 generations here represented of JT, truly? And it all started with the original John Turnow, the original JT. John, we got to bring you in here. Your son took such a chance. You must have been so proud of what he was doing as a stockbroker, making it work. And all of a sudden he tells you he's transitioning and he's just going to take a shot at this radio thing. And not only is it not going to pay him what he was making as a stockbroker, he's actually got to pay to start this career. What was it like for you to watch him transition and become what he has?
Hey, Sam, how are you? Thank you very much for including me in this great tribute to JT. When you called this morning, I was very, very appreciative. Unfortunately, my wife, who would love to be here, when I tell her that I was on this tribute show and she was out playing golf. So unfortunately, your mom can't be with me, but I'm happy that Sam got in touch with me where I wasn't disposed anyplace, and we were able to connect, and I'm on the show. And I tell you, well, I'm reliving myself all the ups and downs over the last 30 years that JT encountered, and overall, we're very, very proud of what he's accomplished over the years. And I told him, I tell you, what Jim Rome said was right on. He just talked about getting up early, getting to work hard, do the best you can, and come back the next day and do it again. And that's what JT did. He went through a lot of turmoil in the beginning, like you mentioned, and Sam and John also. He actually had to pay to get on the radio, okay? But then he kept working hard. He was the hardest working guy on the radio. And, the whole family back east was following his career. And we gave him the best support that we could. His uncles, his aunts, his cousins, and everybody else was rooting for him. And we knew he was going to do well because he had the talent, and more important, he had the passion to follow what his dream was. A lot of people go to work and, it's a job. They just go to work, they put in their 8 hours or whatever. They really don't go crazy about it. They're not that happy about it. But one thing about JT, he's living a dream where he took his passion, he went to work, and he's loving every minute. And even though he works hard, he doesn't really realize, because the time goes so fast when you're having fun. So we're very, very proud of him. I'm happy to be part of this, and I look at some of the people that JT has surrounded himself with, like Jim Rome. That was a great interview with Jim. Also, Eric Allen and John Gruden. I mean, and he's very close to other football players that I grew up watching, like Fred Biletnikoff and others. And it's too bad that Pete Rose can't be with us to join the tribute, but we liked him. He not only called JT Brickster, he called his mother Mrs. Brick. He kept calling her Mrs. Brick. So we have very fine memories of Pete Rose. And to see our grandson Johnny also in the same field and doing very well. And we're looking forward in a couple of weeks to go out to Phoenix and attend the graduation of our other grandson, Jason. And we're happy to see that he's also going to be following some sports related activity. So we're very, very proud of JT, and we wish him the best, and we're happy to be part of this tribute.
Well, one thing before y'all break up the beautiful reunion we're having here, I wanted to ask Johnny, you, the youngest here of the JTs, these two men influenced your life not only to be a sports fan, which plenty of fathers are doing. Plenty of fathers grow up watching sports, and it passes on, and it clearly has, from JT number one on top there into JT the Brick, into you, Johnny, of just watching sports and loving sports. But not only that, but the sports career path as well. Just, Johnny, what was it like, and sort of when did it start? When did you know you had sort of the sports bug of being a fan, but then also knowing, much like your dad did, your dad knew he could make a career out of this at some point. When did you know that?
I think the coolest part for me, I think what people don't know is my grandpa's the biggest sports fan we know. So he's the biggest Yankee fan you ever met by far. He watches every Yankee game. He watches all the Raider games now. And so I think I'd say me and my cousins, my grandpa was always our pitcher growing up in front of his house. So that's when I'd say I'd probably start to really remember. And I just remember we were talking about Robinson Cano used to be one of his favorite players for the Yankees. We'd watch Derek Jeter. We'd watch A-Rod. We'd watch all those Yankee teams growing up. And so I think that's when we'd fall in love with it. I just remember going with my grandpa to Dodger games in L.A. and just like sitting in the back and watching it. And then I remember my dad always at night going to work because he always worked from like 7 to 11. So I remember he'd be getting back right when I'd be going to bed, and my mom would be like pushing us to bed, and we'd stay up and listen to the show before it was a stream. So I would say back then, and like I said, when we'd be in New York with my cousins, we'd always watch Yankee games, play basketball. We'd go to the elementary school by my grandpa's house and just play sports all the time. And then I think that was the biggest key with it all. And just like you said, just sitting in the back of these rooms, listening to people. It's been awesome the last couple of years, really. But it's because of my grandpa, because of my dad, and all of that, and watching my grandpa work his ass off, watching my dad work his ass off. It's the biggest motivation the last couple of years to really separate our family and be really great. So it's the biggest blessing in the world having these guys in my life, and it's very cool.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, we're going to let you go. I know you got a real work day ahead. You're the one that I think has to work hardest now.
Sam, I want to give you your flowers because I know we were talking about this the last couple of days. I was on TPC yesterday, and Sam was blowing me up, and I was like, hey, I'll get the thumbnail done. So we got it done a little late, but it's everything. Sam, you deserve all the flowers in this too, man, because I know getting the brick on StreamYards, I live on it every day. It's not the easiest thing to do. So having a good stream.
Looking good, Johnny. Looking good.
Awesome. So I appreciate you guys, and love you, Dad. Love you, Grandpa. I'll talk to you guys
keep
later.
Keep up the golf swing. I'll be playing with you in a couple of
I
weeks.
know. I'm coming to kick your ass this time. We're not taking no prisoners out there in Scottsdale this year.
We'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Look at that. Well, again, thanks to Johnny, who also helped put this together tremendously, and all the credit to you, JT, the original. John, I've heard about you for years. The reason that JT is passionate about the Yankees, about the Knicks, and to see him come from where you were to be that New York kid into what he is now, just to be able to look at your son today, whatever you want to say here, 30 years of this career, not to mention he had a pretty successful one before that, but you must be so incredibly proud to see the generations that it's become, to know Johnny when he's just a baby, to be that grandfather, and now to see the success that JT's had, that he's passed along to his son, your grandson as well.
Yeah, I tell you, we're very blessed. My wife and I, we talk about this all the time. We're very blessed, you know. We're obviously not youngsters anymore, and every day is a blessing. And then when we see our kids doing very well, our grandkids, we have 7. Jason now is going to be the last one to graduate from college, and we've been to every graduation, all 7. And we're looking forward to going to Phoenix and going to Arizona State to see our last grandson graduate. So we have a very tight family. We're very supportive of one another. But again, it's the individual. The individual has to make the choices. And we're happy that JT made the right choices. And I remember telling him when he was a little kid, and I'm sure he's going to tell this to his kids. You hang around with good people, you're going to be successful. You hang around with bad people, you're not going to be successful. You're going to wind up in a toilet somewhere. And what John did, he had a lot of friends, but he picked out the best friends to be his closest advisors and friends. And that is one piece of advice that I could always give to him and to anybody. You pick out your friends and you pick out the best of their traits, and you're going to do good. And work hard. That's the other question. You got to work hard. and you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to come back stronger because you learn from those mistakes and you do the best you can. And we're very, very proud of his accomplishments. And 30 years is not around the corner. That's a long, long time. 30 years, and to be in that industry for that long, very few people can say that. Okay, a lot of people don't last, half that time or a portion. So it shows what JT has done over the years, his passion, his ability to understand what has to be done. He understands the business side as well. So he did a great job, and we're very proud. Very, very proud.
That's amazing. Well said. Well said, John. And your dad, I mean, just if you want to give him a nod of what he means in all this.
Yeah, he knows what he means. I mean, I'm not doing anything in life without him. He's a hard act to live up to. He's had a great life. He's got much of his life still in front of him. My mom's golfing today. What more do you need to know? He's golfing, playing bocce. He's living his beautiful life in Florida. And again, we're going to see him out here in less than a month. So I'll talk to you later today, Dad, but we're looking forward to seeing you in Vegas and out in Tempe for graduation.
Okay, very good. Enjoy the show. And Sam, thanks again for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We would not have thought of doing this, JT, without some of that representation. I mean, come on, think about it. JT times 3, right? I mean, JT times 3. And again, I want to bring it back to what we're doing here today. Essentially, that lineage of what your dad has created from being a sport. I mean, this is what being a sports fan can do. So many people out there think about sports, and a lot of people that aren't truly passionate with a team probably wonder, what is sports really doing for people? Is it just sort of a hobby that's not really worth the time? Look at what it's done to your life. Look how sports shaped your life because of what your dad did. Because of what your dad did. Just raising a sports fan turned into this for you, right? If he's not a sports fan and passionately getting you involved in the Yankees, none of this happens. Yeah, there it is, JT. There it is. That's what it means to have a family of sports fans. It is a career. You don't meet Julie without sports in your life. You do not meet your wife at that Rolling Stones concert with the tickets from Andrew Ashwood unless you are a Yankees fan, essentially. I mean, it's a credit to what your dad did. And I just want to bring everybody back to the moment of why we're here. I just want to remind everybody, because we talked to Jim Rome to start this thing off. It's 30 years ago today, 30 years ago, April 14th, 1995, that you called a SmackOff. You had been a caller to Jim's show, but you win the first ever SmackOff. And it doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say it launches a career. I'll say that it sparks a career. You had to take a tiny, tiny spark and turn it into a real fire. But I also want to give credit, as we did with Jim, the real brainchild of the SmackOff. And Jim said it that day. I cut off the tape a little earlier when we played it to start the show, but he's saying goodbye to the show that day. He credits his producer at the time, Joe Totino, and the brainchild of the SmackOff. He credits his producer, Travis Rogers. It was Travis's idea to bring this thing together. Now, Travis is, again, a part of this broadcast tree from Jim. So Travis is on the air right now. He is on the air in LA. Travis is a successful radio star because of Jim, and really a credit to you as well to follow in those footsteps. He couldn't be here today, but there was no way that Travis wasn't also going to be a part of this show.
Hey JT, it's Travis. Believe it or not, it has been 30 years since we first crossed our paths. I know I'm on the air right now, so I'm doing a little video tribute while you guys are doing your thing. Congratulations on 30 years, and we all know how you got started, right? The SmackOff was kind of the launching part into your unbelievable 30-year career. And this is no joke, when I created the SmackOff 30 years ago, it was to put you on the air more. We wanted you to call more. We wanted your voice on the air more, and you did the rest of it after that. So you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. We've both forged our own paths since then, but it's been very, very hard to believe that it has been 30 years. A little help here, maybe some other things, along the way that we've had to kind of both battle through as well. But congratulations on 30 amazing years, and never forget, you're gutless.
There it is.
Let's stop and thank him again, because he went on. And I remember when he went to Houston, and he left the Rome show and he was doing other things. And I remember getting a call, and I think we did speak at one point about his embarking on this journey. And I knew the impact that he had in sports radio at that time. That was not an easy show to produce. There were a lot of moving parts. And when he went to Houston, I said, man, this is going to be interesting. You know, he wasn't starting at ESPN LA. He had to go, kind of like I did to Vegas, and then he blew up in Houston and obviously came back, and he's got a really good show, and a lot of people in our world connected through that we worked with along the way. You know, I'm a big Scott Kaplan guy, George Sedano, great friends I work with, Chris Morales, big impacts on my career, obviously you, but yeah, it's great to see Travis because he deserves a lot of credit. If he doesn't come up with the concept of the SmackOff, there's no JT, there's no me working for the Raiders, there's no me meeting my life, and we keep getting back to that. We keep getting back to this, which I'm proud of, is that I've always said this, when a door opens, because doors close your whole life. We're in radio, man. Radio is ruthless. People are getting fired daily. Radio stations are going under. Podcasts are putting radio stations out of. When a door closes, another one opens. The problem is you don't see it. The door's there, and it opens, and you got to decide if you're going to walk through it or not. And if you walk through that door, maybe something great will be on the other side. But there's always doors opening, and it's kind of like a movie. Boom, boom, a door's going to open. Travis opened a door. He opened a door for himself as an on-air talent because he knew he had that talent working on that show. And then look at him now, #2 media market with a big show. And that meant a lot for me that he was able to check in. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Travis did it. But again, following in your footsteps. And when we talk about the Jim Rome broadcasting tree, let's remember, you obviously started it. You're the biggest piece on the biggest rung on that tree and from that first SmackOff. But the fact that not only did you forge the incredibly successful career that continues, 30 years of broadcasting, 29 years with the Raiders, but for Travis to be on the air in LA, let's remember also Jason Stewart has gone on to also produce incredible shows all over the place as well. Credit to him. And of course, Kyle Brandt, who's another producer for Jim, who has an unbelievable career at Good Morning Football. You know, I mean, Peter Schrager's crying on the air for the opportunity to have worked with Kyle. Think about what that means to what Jim has done for this, not only your career, but other careers, just for being around and for being around that work ethic. As your dad talked about, it's the work. It's the hard work that really makes this all happen. I worked for years with Colin Cowherd as well. You can see the difference in people that work at it, JT. And one thing I just want to say, when I met you, the hardest working man in sports talk, you heard Gruden talking about it as well, right? What it meant to live up to what you were doing in the Bay Area at that time. Now, remember, when you were at Sports Fan, you were working a lot of hours as well. But when you came, when Lisa Miller changed your life with a phone call and said, you're moving to San Francisco because you're going to be on the radio as the Raiders pre and post, but we're also going to get you on afternoon drive. You were also still hosting Sports Fan Radio at night, syndicated. You were local during the day for 3 hours. You were on the air nationally syndicated at night for 5 hours. Think about a working day of broadcasting, 8 hours of that day on the Ticket 1050. Back when we talk about this banner with Gruden, when we talk about the banner with Gruden, when we talk about what that really meant, when we talk about the Ticket 1050 and what you were doing for 8 hours during that time, JT, what do you remember about being the hardest man in radio on the Ticket 1050, 8 hours that you were putting in? What was that mentality like? How did you even compartmentalize and make that happen?
Yeah, that was hard because I left my wife who I met, and we're talking about getting married pretty quickly after we meet. And she's a school teacher in Vegas, and I'm moving up. And my agent, Miller Broadcast Management, and I want to make sure I make this clear. Lisa and Matt Miller had a massive impact on my life as my agents for the majority of my career. They put me in some really good winning situations. But when I started doing 8 hours a day, it was noon to 3 on a local show with Coach Gruden and all that. And that was fun. That's Raider Nation, the birth of all that, big station. But then I'd go home and I'd have to get ready. And my buddy Tony Cambo, my roommate at the time on Lion and Golden Gate, right by Haight-Ashbury, and I'd have to get back to do that show at 9 p.m. So I'd have a little window between 3 and 9 with traffic, and I'd get down there, and then I'd have to do that show. And then my wife ended up moving up there when we got engaged. We started our life. And I remember the other day was the 25-year anniversary of Pac Bell Park at the time, Oracle, where the Giants play. And I remember coming home at 2 a.m. for a long time doing that double shift and hearing the bong of the steel as they were building that stadium for Bonds. And I'd have to get to bed, man. I'd have to get to bed by 3 a.m. because I got to be back and look at sports in the morning and get ready for that show. So I was very proud of that run because I was solo. I didn't have a partner. I did 8 hours solo, and I did it for a couple of years because I had the opportunity to do that and people believed in me. And that's right kind of when I left to go to Fox Sports Radio because that was wearing me out. And then at that time, Tom Lee called me and my agent said, you got an opportunity to go to LA and work for Premier Radio Networks and Fox Sports Radio as they launch a network. And that I kept the Raider job. I lost the local show because I didn't tell them I was leaving. I got down there and I was still doing it. They finally figured it out. And then that opened up a 17-and-a-half-year run at Fox, which is the longest run that I've had at any other place. So all that 8 hours a day stuff was really, really hard. But as my dad said, I loved it because I was talking sports. How hard could it have been?
Well, let's talk about the 17 and a half years at Fox Sports Radio. Now, Andrew Ashwood is a huge part of your career, my career as well. And ironically, while he was really your mentor when he created the playbook for you to follow, you weren't working for him in Miami. You weren't working for him in San Antonio. In fact, when you started at Fox Sports Radio, he wasn't even there. He eventually becomes our boss, and it's hard to even call him a boss. He was such a lovable figure. I mean, Andrew was just a friend to anyone who came in contact with him. It was so difficult to ever see him as a boss. I can recall sitting in his office, and it just never, ever felt like you were sitting with your boss. You were just it felt like, it was almost like sitting with your father when you sat with Ashwood. You know, you knew it was important, and you were at least, you knew you wanted to be on your game, but it just didn't feel like a boss. And he was really a brother to both of us, and certainly to you. But look what he did. You talk about being solo on the radio the way that you were over the years, but there was one person that Ashwood convinced you to trust to be on the air with. One person, because JT, you hated what Guy Talk Radio was. You couldn't stand it. You wanted to talk sports, and you needed it to be that. You needed it to always be about sports. You never wanted it to be too cute. And the idea of a co-host always begged the question, well, can I have a co-host and not ask him about his day or ask her about her day? You know, can we still make it about sports? Ashwood convinced you. He said, trust me, bud. Yeah, babe. Trust me. I'm going to let Looney on with you. I'm gonna let Tom go there with you, and let's just see how it goes. Doesn't have to be anything right now, but let's just see how it goes. Tom Looney, such a crucial part of your career. And not only was it just at Fox for those 17 and a half years, you continued that relationship today with the podcast with Looney. We could not celebrate and look back at 30 years without understanding what Tom Looney has meant in your career and what he has been and what he continues to be, because it was that relationship that gave you, in essence, the energy to do this for another 30 years. Tom,
God, he's never looked better. It's so hard to do this. He's never looked better. I mean, the tan, the shirt, the biceps, but getting back to that moment.
Oh, please don't talk to me about my looks and my body, please.
Your body looks great. Andrew pulled me aside, and Andrew was my sports talk radio angel. If you look at my life, he was the angel that came in for a lot of reasons. And he's the reason I met my wife, period. And Andrew put me on with Tom and said, you know, you got to kind of lighten up a little bit, man. You're a little bit too aggressive. You're all sports all the time. So he opened up Looney's Update microphone. And then that opened up a 12, 13, 14-year run that we had together of working together. And yeah, if you look at all the big moments that I've been lucky enough to have, this is a Mount Rushmore guy for me. You know, remember, Mount Rushmore only has 4 presidents. I know the new one wants to include himself on that, but he can't. There's only 4. Tom Looney is on the Mount Rushmore of my broadcast career, and he turned out to be one of my great friends.
And you are the king of the jungle. This is why I picked out this uniform for the great celebration and anniversary today. And congratulations. One of my favorite quotes so far, John Gruden, who said this, that JT does everything with humility and grace. Yeah, you're the Jackie Kennedy of sports talk.
Yeah. Yeah, you caught that one. You don't miss anything.
I think we need to send a thesaurus to John Gruden.
I'll put that in the box. I'm going to send him a box with stuff. I'll put a thesaurus in there so he can take a look at that.
How great fun it's been. And I remember it was so much fun because JT, once he likes you, once he loves you, he loves you. You're friends forever. And I knew that when we first had a lunch, and I found out he had friends since kindergarten. And I thought, oh, I have friends since kindergarten. So I trust people who have friends for a long time. I get in there my first week, and it's first time bringing me in, and he talks about who's coming up on the show. And JT says, Michelle Rahal is going to join us. And I said, oh, I love her. And JT didn't know my humor at the time. I'm brand new. The look on JT's face. And I remember we were in separate rooms. I couldn't see his face, but the board op said he's making faces. And I remember another producer we had, Raj, told the board op, the guy who pushes the buttons, don't tell Looney if JT's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is good. It's human. Right? He's here to make JT uncomfortable. So did we have a great time laughing? And the friendship was always more important than anything else, in which that's what made it such a good run.
Well,
yeah,
Tom,
it was not only that quickly, Sam, but that's when you came in, and before that, and we really had a good group of people, because at my time at Fox, I'm thinking 30 years today, not from doing radio, but 30 years from winning the SmackOff and it's starting. Those years were great because I never wanted to have friends at work. I had too many friends to keep track of. I was very lucky. I got a lot of friends. So I didn't go to work to have friends. Like I'm the guy that walks in there with my backpack and little small talk, but I didn't want to have friends there. And that was a big chapter because of all the friends that I made there, because it was just because of Andrew putting people together, Tom Lee, Craig Kitchen, putting Annie Zadarovich, everybody was there at that time for a 10 to 17-year run. Everyone got along. Everybody wanted people to win. Jay Moore, Stephen A. Smith. The reason I'm tight with Stephen A. was that, because he started there and he was just a guy just trying to be heard. But it was the producers, the board ops, the phone screeners that became friends for life. And a lot of that had to do with Tom, because Tom would pull me aside and say, hey, the intern's been listening to you since you started calling Rome. Go say hi to him or her.
Right, yeah.
Forced me to do that. And then we end up going having beers afterwards and building these really cool friendships. I love that.
I was always pushing him, reminding the quiet man named John, which he can be at times, to that he's a talk show host. Great anecdote about that. The guys at the liquor store, there's a liquor store down the street. And we were on the air when we had this conversation. He said, they're so unfriendly. They don't talk to you. I said, you're a talk show host. Talk to them. And yeah, we had a great crew that would always encourage friendship, socialization. And right, you thought of friends at work like you thought when UFC and MMA came along. You thought, I have too many sports on my plate. I can't take another one. But eventually you adopted it. And you also adopted a great strategy for, okay, I do have friends at work, and once you're JT's friend, for people who don't know that, people might think you're rough around the edges because they hear the guy on the air. But remember, yeah, people think the same thing about lions too, but they'll cuddle up with you, and they'll be your friend forever, and they will be JT has a lot more pussycat in him than people realize, right, Sam?
That is so true. Loyalty is the key word there, Tom. And this is a credit of it right here for the three of us. And JT, you and I get on a plane in 1999. I'm coming back home from San Francisco to LA to see my family, and we talk about Fox Sports Radio, and all of a sudden my life is back in LA because of you and the loyalty that you have, and obviously what you and Tom have for all those years. Looney, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this. You're a huge piece of the arc in JT's career, and we could not have looked back on 30 years without someone who's taken up more than half of it. Looney, we love you. We love what you've been.
30th is pearls, Jake.
Yes.
Thank you for all your pearls of wisdom.
That is for sure. Looney, we love you. We love you.
I get 11 Amazon boxes a day delivered to the house. Maybe my pearls will be here by 4:00.
That's beautiful. Well, there he is, Tom Looney. I mean, wow. what a beauty. What a beauty Looney is, of course, and JT. to know what it's been for all those years because of Looney. And you and I are going to talk about the Fox Sports Radio run. And I want to give you a chance to tell that story right now. You know, essentially your career goes from calling Jim, you're on in Pasadena, you end up on in San Diego, you call Sports Fan, you get on in Vegas. That becomes the Sports Fan Radio Network. We won't tell the story of how that really ended and you running into the airport to a very special person as well with that one. But I mean, Sports Fan Radio ends up disappearing. And from that seamless transition, Sports Fan Radio into Fox Sports Radio, I want you to kind of relive what Fox Sports Radio was. You talked about Stephen A. Smith, who, by the way, is texting me right now. Congratulations to my guy, JT. Stephen A. is so excited and proud of you and everything that you're doing. He knows what we're doing today, and he really is a huge fan, as you know, of what you continue to do. Yes. So, of course, Fox Sports Radio played such a role. But Fox Sports Radio also came to an end. I mean, you had this sort of unprecedented run at Fox Sports Radio, but it did come to an end. And it was, I know for you, it could have, you know, Jim talked about this sort of transitioning and reinventing yourself. You could have felt that at the end because it represented so much of who you were, and you didn't. Try to relive what that was like. And I know there's part of it that's painful, but also part of it that's like a rebirth as well.
Well, yeah, it was kind of painful because the big part of Fox Sports Radio was starting on Fox Sports Radio with Tony Bruno, Andrew Siciliano, Chris Myers, Crystal Fernandez. You go back to everybody who was there, and I was a big part of the lineup. So I was doing a bunch of shifts. I led into George Sedano, who was doing overnights, and we had Kylie and Booms, and there were so many different talented people that came in.
Steve Zabin.
Yeah, so, you know, I worked with a lot of good people there, and all I wanted to do was get to 20. That was really important to me. My dad was on earlier. I remember going to my dad's retirement party, and people got up and spoke, and I'm still a young guy. I was a young guy back then, and I thought I deserved one more contract, but I didn't deserve it. I mean, when, you know, I didn't get fired, they just didn't renew me at the end, but it was how I found out from some people who did not want me to have dignity where it ended. So that's it. I'm not talking about that again. You got that on your stream.
Well, JT, again, and thanks for everyone that is with us today watching on your channel, JT. It's a huge, this is really such an incredible, monumental occasion on your channel today for those that are with you. And I know we got to wrap because you actually got your local show that you're doing in Vegas, which is tremendously successful. But yeah, I want to go back to that and what Fox Sports Radio meant. Full circle in your career. And we've got someone else who really wants to say hello to you. And I want to get this person on as well. But let me say this. That address where Fox Sports Radio was here in Southern California, Sepulveda and Ventura, you know, Jim Rome, who we spoke to start this thing off today, his career is built by Craig Kitchen at that address. Premier Radio, which at the time was running Rush Limbaugh and Jim Rome because of the unbelievable icon titan in this industry, Craig Kitchen. Craig Kitchen had the wherewithal to say, not only is Jim so successful, we can turn this into 24 hours total of sports radio available across the country. You win that SmackOff, and we're not talking 20 years later. Within 6 years, you're working at the same address as Jim Rome. You're doing nationally syndicated radio at the same address as Jim. The former Denny's that they turned into this epic nationally syndicated radio network. You're there and Jim's there doing national radio, which is so unbelievable. And from that, not only do you get to work at a network that involves the iconic Jim Rome, then when that run ends, how about how your sports career really started? Mike and the Mad Dog. I mean, Mad Dog's got his own radio network and you work for him. What was it like for you to know that not only did you get to work at Fox at Premiere with Jim, but then you get to work with Mad Dog, you get to work at Mad Dog as well?
Well, that was great because one of the things about Mad Dog, even when I was at Fox at the end, I knew Mad Dog was going to be a decent fit for me because they embraced content and the host having opinions. I mean, I worked with Adam Shine early in my career, and, you know, Christopher Mad Dog Russo is one of the icons in the history of sports radio. That's how you get a channel named after you, because you could build the channel like Howard Stern. So that was a big deal. And I've had a nice little short run with them there, and I appreciate all the shifts that I'm able to do. But that's another group of really good people. So when I was at other companies and I looked at SiriusXM and that whole channel, I said, that's a good fit for me somewhere down the road because they do the type of radio that I like. They don't run away from the callers. They don't say the callers don't matter. They kind of fit the mold that I like. And whenever I'm on there, I was on Monday night for the national championship game with Florida. I'm on tonight and tomorrow after Rory won. It's a big platform. It's a great platform. A lot of that has to do with the architects of SiriusXM and Mad Dog Sports Radio. So a really nice transition fit for me and a big part of my 30 years, the last 5 or 6 with SiriusXM, because they've treated me with dignity and respect, and they've been good friends and people that I'm really proud to be associated with.
Well, that's great. Well, someone else I wanted to bring in today, another best friend of yours, who, by the way, is all over this book, and he was with you in San Diego. He's a big part of the handoff. He knows and loves Andrew Ashwood so much because they are both ridiculous Packers fans as well. But we couldn't do this without the Flipper, without Brad Flipsy. To get Brad on and talk about the journey, the arc, knowing that you made that call, winning that call the way you did, turning it into an unbelievable career. Thank you for that, Flipsy, for LIX, for the Eagles. Yes, of course, we should have been there together in New Orleans for that one. But what has it been like, Flipper, to know JT, to ride the coattails of this epic 30-year career into what it's meant to you, for being a sports fan, to know it through the lens of JT as you have over the years? What has that been like?
Well, listening to this celebration the last 2 hours and all the people involved in giving congratulations to JT, which is well-deserved, obviously, meeting him at the Super Bowl after 9/11 in a hotel room, my hotel room at the Courtyard Marriott in New Orleans, Louisiana. From that point forward, which was, 25 years ago,
Yeah,
we've been best friends. The many Super Bowl weeks, the many trips, the many Raider games. He got me into Raider season tickets, which I'm there watching him and Eric, listening to him and Eric pre and post game. I rarely miss games. I love Las Vegas. I love Julie. I love Johnny and Jason. There isn't better people that I am blessed to have in my life.
Well, Brad, I also want to talk about, we talked about Andrew Ashwood, the thread he's had throughout this career, JT's. Can we all relive a moment that brought so much of life full circle for us? When Andrew was sick towards the end, we knew that we had to get a trip to Green Bay going. We knew that we had to go. And the Raiders were visiting Brett Favre and the Packers that particular year.
December
and
4th.
We got a huge group together, Flipper, including your dad, King Flipper, as I like to call him, the original Flipper. But we had us all go to Green Bay for that trip. And on that trip, the great Jay Glazer was able, on the Saturday night before the game, again, it was Packers Raiders that Sunday. That Saturday night, we all celebrated with Andrew Ashwood in that room together. And Jay was able to coordinate for Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Packers, the night before the game, came out to see all of us and to celebrate what Ashwood was for him as a Packers fan within his career, for Ashwood, that is, and what he meant to all of us the night before the game. How much do we remember what that meant to be with Ashwood? There it is. You got the picture, the photo right there with Mike McCarthy. That's it, Flipper. Brad Flipsy, best friend to JT, that moment in that room for his career with Ashwood and Mike McCarthy. What a moment that was for us.
JT and I hosted the 20 people we had in the suite. It was bone cold that Sunday. We had bratwurst as our tailgate. We had the Raider video crew following us everywhere from Friday to Sunday. But Sunday morning, it was so cold. Thank God we got to go into Lambeau Field and we were in a suite and just celebrating Andrew because he was an amazing human. And I had many experiences with him. I went to some playoff games with him in Lambeau on the road. It was introduced, obviously, because of JT. And he was JT's mentor of all mentors, which I love the man. And yeah, it's unexplainable, all the experiences I had with Andrew, because he was truly an amazing human.
Yeah, what was amazing about that moment was Andrew was dying, and I was his chemo partner, and he pulled me aside at one point and said, look, we got to get everybody together in Lambeau. I said, well, the Raiders are playing there. I'll take care of that. And he was able to take care of it. But Jay Glazer had a big big role with that because he asked Mike McCarthy to come to this private event the night before the game. And if you know the NFL, coaches don't leave the hotel the night before a game. You just don't. The 2 nights before the game, yeah. But the Saturday night, the team's in lockdown meetings. Mike McCarthy walks in, comes up to this crow's nest at this bar we're at, leather jacket, has some beers with us, spent a couple of hours with us and spoke to Andrew. Andrew was dying. We hoped he wouldn't, but it wasn't looking good. And then as we sat in the suite of that game, people just kept coming to Andrew to say goodbye from that part of his life. Wisconsin, big Wisconsin guy, big Packer fan, and his boyhood friends and his mentors were there to kind of say goodbye to him as we went back to City of Hope to fight the battle after that. But Andrew saw that in case he didn't win the fight, because his line was winning was the only option. If he didn't win the fight, he wanted to go out at Lambeau Field with one more great event. Brad was a big part of it, all the guys that went there, and it was really a peaceful night to see Andrew Ashwood at his home at Lambeau Field with all his friends and family one last time. And it's an emotional day. We lost Andrew not too long after that, but we did have one hell of a time at Lambeau Field. The Packers won, the Raiders lost. It was a one-sided game. Andrew was happy that day, and I'll never forget the importance of that night.
Well, Brad, thank you for, by the way, just being such a huge part of this crew. I mean, that's the beauty of JT's loyalty. He travels with the pack from winning that SmackOff, which he credited to all of his friends, to taking his friends to those first tour stops. JT doesn't go to the huge events in his life for sports without including his friends. You've provided incredible access, Brad. You've been a huge part of it. You don't miss a trip. And you are a huge part of the passion that continues to fuel JT. So I just want to thank you for knowing that. But it's the best friends in life. It's about forging those relationships and taking them with you. And you have represented it incredibly. You, obviously, Bobby G as well. We talked to Jimmy B earlier. But Flipsy, I mean, really, tear rolling down my face. Thank you for being such a huge part of the moments that JT created 30 years ago.
Sam, I'm so honored that you asked me to be a part of this. JT, I love you like a brother. Every word that was said these last 2 hours is more than well-deserved. And you know what? We got 30 more years together, kid.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Love you. Appreciate you coming on here. You know, when we started this, I know you have tricks up your sleeve. I didn't expect this. I just thought we'd go through the arc of the call 30 years ago and what that meant. But, man, this is mind-blowing what you've done today. My dad, obviously, being the top with my son, Jim Rome to start, John Gruden, Eric Allen, Jimmy B, Brad, everybody that you brought together, and you who are embarking in this part of your career, which I'm so proud of, is being on this side of the microphone and camera and doing what you're doing with Andrew Siciliano. I'm really proud of what you're doing. I know you had this in you from day one. You're an amazing collaborator and producer, but I'm excited to see what you do next because I take credit for you being a part of my tree, man.
Well, JT, thank you. What an honor it is to hear that, to be part of this incredible broadcasting tree that we've seen today. To start with Jim the way he did, to know the thread through Craig Kitchen the way that it is, to bring it all the way through with what Siciliano did, who, by the way, Siciliano was a sidekick, essentially. Think about this. For those that know Siciliano as the Red Zone, Andrew was essentially Tony Bruno's right-hand guy on the air. He was basically the Tom Looney to what Tony Bruno was doing and turned it into an incredible career himself. To hear you say that means the world to me, JT. We knew it. It was a friendship from the start. Before we go, I want you to be able to tell a few other stories. I just want you to be able to say a few other things. You've created now an unbelievable local show in Las Vegas, and I want you to have the opportunity to at least discuss how Las Vegas has played a role in your career, because things essentially started in Las Vegas, really ended up in San Francisco and Los Angeles. It didn't feel like you were going to end up back in Vegas. Not only do you end up in Vegas doing your national radio show, the Raiders end up in Vegas, by the way, hosting what I still consider the greatest venue for a Super Bowl. In my opinion, every single Super Bowl should be at that stadium in that city that is so well designed. Credit to Mark Davis. Look how hard it is to get to Vegas. Ask the A's how easy it is to get to Vegas, by the way. It's not so easy. Mark Davis did it. Every Super Bowl, every year should be in Las Vegas, as far as I'm concerned, for how well the city put that together. Your career sits in Las Vegas now on a national level. on a Raiders level, of course, and on a local radio level as well, because you are still connecting with people in Las Vegas. Just let us know how that happened, how you continue to make it happen today.
Well, Vegas is my home where I met my wife after winning the SmackOff and moving here and kind of putting a bow on my life to where it is today. Vegas was the big part of it. So after I did 10 years at Fox, they came to me and basically gave me an opportunity to move and said, I mentioned to Dalbert, if you want to move, because our kids were getting to that age where we wanted them to live in Southern Nevada, no state taxes. We didn't know the Raiders were coming at all. And I was commuting a lot, twice a week up there. It would be easier from Vegas than Burbank in LA. So I got a chance to come back here. And as soon as I came back, a guy by the name of Tony Benici and now Natalie Marsh gave me an opportunity to do my local show here on top of my national show. So every day I'm on noon to 2. I got about 16 or 17 advertisers from Modelo to Tito's, to Resorts World, to Virgin Hotels, a whole bunch of partners. And that's really my grind every day. Every day I try to keep advertisers on the radio, live reads, do a show. It's heavy Raider centric. And, you know, I love that. That's my day every day when I get up. I do Mad Dog a couple nights a week, which is great. I can't do 10 radio shows a week anymore. It's just hard to do 10. You know, I was doing 10 to 12 radio shows a week, if you include pre and post game on Sunday. So now my bread and butter is my midday show here in Vegas, noon to 2, Raider Nation Radio. That streams on the Raiders mobile app, and we stream that on my YouTube channel. But I just like it because I'm dealing with advertisers and clients and casinos and remotes, and I like doing that. And then I just love the lifestyle in Vegas. And who would have thought the Raiders would come? Because a lot of people blame me. This is another really quick story. When I was up in Oakland, I was here, excuse me. A lot of people thought I lived in the Bay. I didn't. I was here the whole time. I commuted for 17 years for that Raider gig. That wasn't easy. And then they came here. A lot of fans blamed me and took it out on me on social media. You knew all the time. No, no one knew. Raiders never wanted to leave Oakland. Mark Davis never wanted to leave Oakland. They ended up leaving for an array of reasons to come here. And now they're in the city that I was always here. And I was here the whole time. And I still get an opportunity to interview the head coach every week, do the pre and post, and do a show connecting with the Raider Nation. But I love Vegas. You know, I lived in San Francisco, La Jolla, Sherman Oaks. I'm from New York. New York's my entire DNA. Lived in Connecticut. But my favorite place has always been Las Vegas because you can have the best time of your life here. Your friends and family want to visit. You know, you'll come out to California, it's like you're going on a vacation. Coming out to Vegas, it's 2 days in, 3 days you're out. So I see a lot of family and friends. There's great sporting events here. I love the Golden Knights. We got the Raiders, UFC, boxing, which was a big part of my path in life. And it gets a little hot in the summertime, but that's usually when I head out to Costa Mesa and see you on Gaviota.
Yes.
Back to the cooler areas of California. But Vegas has been good to me, man, and I hope I can keep it going here in Vegas now because it's just a great place that brings people together. That's a lot of fun. We have the Sphere for all these concerts, Allegiant Stadium, as you mentioned, and it's a place where people want to come and have a good time, Sam.
It's an incredible city. It's an incredible sports city. I really do hope the A's get there. You know, I drove Hagenberger not so long ago to look to my left as you're going to the airport and see what used to be 3 professional teams in one parking lot. And the only city that did more than that is Philly, who, the Eagles, the Flyers, the Sixers, and the Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, and Sixers all played in the same parking lot. And of course, in Oakland, you had the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors all there in that parking lot. And now that it's none of them, it's so weird, but it's a credit to Vegas in a way. Look at what the Knights did. The Knights show up. They go to the Stanley Cup final their first year. They win it within 3 years. Vegas is an amazing sports city. And you are part of legitimizing Vegas as a sports city, JT. You always told me it was huge because of what it could do from a fight standpoint. We went to many, many fights together early before it was where you lived. You knew it was the future of this industry, and it is. We haven't even said gambling today, but obviously that's a huge part of it as well. Vegas is going to be the epicenter of what this industry is. And I just want to say, JT, we spoke to a titan of this industry to start this thing today, of course, in what Jim does, but not even 30 years later, we could have said it 10 years after the fact. You are a titan in this industry, but I just want to remind everybody of why it happened. It didn't even, all the work that went into making the call, that would have been enough to say that you worked your ass off to do it. But think about, and I'll give you an opportunity to even speak to it, calling program directors to get a job, calling program directors after you're on their station just to continue that relationship, calling new program directors for the opportunity for your show that's already on and popular to be there as well, making the connections the way that you did with stations like WEEI in Boston to become a fabric of what they do, not just to be that you happen to be on the radio for them, that you're on the radio, and that for the people that are listening in those cities, they think that you don't do their show for the country. They think you're doing your show for them. They think you're doing it in their city because the way that you chose to travel to big events, even travel to small events, so that you could connect with the communities that you were on all over the country, even though you're obviously only one man who can only be in one place while you're doing the show, but you were touching all of those places specifically because you knew what it mattered in the end.
Well, that was the life of syndication. I got very lucky. You know, I don't want to look at the past and say it was better. The future now is podcast and streaming what we're doing. But, you know, I started my career in 96, and from 98 to 2010, I was in the heyday of sports radio. Not that it can't be good again. I'm not saying, but it will never be what it was then, where you had the titans of the industry all syndicated at the same time. It could have been late night like me. It could have been early in the morning, but it was the wheelhouse of all that. And just the one little advantage I had over some of the people at that time is I knew how to get on the phone and introduce myself to program directors. The story of Bob Agnew, who's the program director at KMBR. I get a call from Charlie Barker at Sportsman. He goes, "What the hell are you doing calling the program director at KMBR?" And I said, "I just called him to introduce myself. I'm going to be on your station for 4 hours a night, 5 hours. I think you should know who I am." Well, I guess Agnew called Charlie and said, "Who the hell's this guy calling me?" And I told Charlie, I said, "Too bad." I go, I'm a stockbroker. I have a white collar job. I'm going to call people and introduce myself. What are you going to tell me? I can't pick up the phone and say, "Hi, I'm the guy that's going to be on your radio station." I did that all the time. I did that every day to try to build relationships, because those were the guys. And one guy we didn't mention today, I want to mention Bruce Gilbert. Bruce Gilbert is a titan in the industry, and I hope he hears this and sees this. Bruce was one of the first guys I ever called, and I sent him my radio, and he quite frankly called me back and was like, "I don't like what you do. I kind of don't get you, but keep sending me information." And he was tight with Andrew, and 3 or 4 years later down the road, Bruce was giving me thumbs up at conventions saying, "You're getting better," and all that. And I eventually ended up working for Bruce when he came to Fox Sports Radio for a bit. So when I think of Craig Kitchen, Tom Lee, Andrew Ashwood, okay, I think of Tony Salvador, Gabe Hobbs, for those who know radio, Rick Scott, the anchor who brought everybody together for sports radio conventions, and the hundreds of program directors, Jason Wolf at WEEI. I want to get Mike North into this conversation, the first sports talk radio host ever to make $1 million, who took me under his wing. Instead of saying, "Get away," said, "If you need anything, call me." Those are the guys who are the titans that I look up to. I was very lucky to have a support staff, Sam, including you, of people that said, "Man, we like what you do. Even if we don't get you, keep working." Like my dad said, keep grinding and build a career. Has it been the pinnacle and greatest career of all time? No, but I'm proud of what I've done so far. I'm proud of the relationships, and I'm proud of the listeners and the callers who have all been there for me. No matter if it's a trucker at 2:30 in the morning driving through Oklahoma, or a guy delivering bread in Boston at 4 in the morning, picking up the phone. Those are the backbone people in my life in this era, and I would be nothing without them, and I thank them all.
Well, JT, you certainly brought callers to life, because you were a caller that was brought to life. And credit to Raider Mort and Benny the Jet. And let's look, and there's, of course, I mean, the amount of names that we could run through for the people that helped you stay alert and passionate throughout the night. And any time that you were on, they followed you. They wanted to be a part of what you did. They were a fabric of this entire thing, and they made it happen. And you have, again, a passion and an energy that is relentless. And just before we go, the amount of hours that you've put into being on the air, you have to understand, there's prep that happens before you're on the air. So for anyone, as we mentioned earlier, about 8 hours on the air, imagine the time that he's not on the air. Imagine the time that you're putting in to just make it happen. I just want you to be able to also look at that. The amount of time that you spent doing shows in a week, the amount of hours that you did, it's unlike anybody else. It's actually, I would say this, what makes you most unique is simply that. The amount of hours that you put on the air in a week on the radio and even what you're doing now, that will be what I remember. That's the most impressive part.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Sam. I think that if I do have a small legacy in this business, I think I'm close to doing the most radio hours of all time. Because most of the time I didn't have a partner until Looney came in. So it was all solo. And it was a lot of radio and a lot of long shows. And today I'm lucky to have 5 hours solo with the help of great producers. I'm going to do 2 coming up here and then 3 tonight. And yeah, that's one of the things I'm remembered for down the road, that I probably knocked off more hours, which is not something to aspire to. It's nice if you end up doing it, but the goal is to make more money by working less. And I've had that moment in my career too. But the amount of hours that I've done is because of my wife and my kids enabling me to do that, and to have a couple of radio stations and networks believing to keep me on the air, and especially the Raiders. If the Raiders don't give me this path in my life, I don't have radio shows, TV shows, the opportunity that I have today. It takes a village, and the people that let me stay on the air, which is not a birthright, it's a privilege. Those are the people that I really want to thank, because it's hard now. And for you, and my final thoughts on this, the future of what we're doing is right here. And I want to give a shout out to Damon Bruce, because he lost his radio show. He got done dirty for no reason. He was the best guy on their channel. And what did he do? He ended up building a YouTube channel, which is so significant now. And it's something that I was late to the party and I'm doing now and you're doing. And that's kind of the wave of the future, that you might not have a radio station. You might not be on The Score in Chicago. You might not be on WQAM in Miami, but your YouTube channel could be bigger than the AM and FM radio stations in that town if you do it right. So I want to make sure that for anybody who's given me credit, everybody can do this. Everybody has one of these microphones. Everybody has a camera. And if it's your passion to try this and give it a shot, there's one thing you can take from me. Have the balls to do it. Enjoy it the whole time, and walk through those doors when they open, because you never know what's going to be on the other side.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Damon and Andrew. I was considering having both of them join us today, and I wanted you to have the time also. So really, an open invite always to both of them, of course, to join and what they have done, and in the way that they're transitioning their careers as well. But of course, we love Andrew Siciliano. We love Damon Bruce. Damon has created a channel here and given us really the playbook, if you will, to how to do this on your own. And he's done an amazing job with it. He really has. And you're right. Anyone can do it, but not everyone can really do it, because it takes a special commitment and a real patience to make this happen. You've done it. You see it. Damon truly has done it. But I also want to thank the most important person that we've spoken about today, but your wife, Julie, JT. Look, I got a lot of friends who got married before I did. A lot of friends who had kids well before I did. And the most unique relationship I've seen, not only in this business, but in my entire life, the most unique relationship. And I tell this to people that are getting married. I say the guy that figured it out, number one, in regards to how a wife can support and be a part of your life. There's only one guy who figured it out, and it was JT, because he found Julie. Julie is the number one when it comes to supporting what you do, being enough a part of it, but understanding that you're going to be on the road at big events and you got shit to do sometimes. And even, frankly, I got to make stories for the radio with my friends sometimes. She understands what it is. She's a part of many trips. At others, she says, you go do your thing. Julie makes this entire thing happen. She really, without Julie, 30 years is not an option, because you'd be banging your head against the wall constantly if you didn't have a wife who both understood what you were doing from day one. When you said, hey, we got to move to San Francisco, she understood it from day one. She understands it to today. She raised 2 kids with you and understood the entire time that it was sports and your experience with sports that was going to be the thread for your family.
Sam, I love you. You couldn't have said it better. She's the number one. She's the queen. She's done it all. If Andrew Ashwood doesn't send me 2 tickets to the Rolling Stones at the Hard Rock, because he couldn't make it on Valentine's Day in 1998, because he had to go to a party at Madonna's place in New York. And those 2 Rolling Stones tickets show up. I go to the center bar with my buddy Todd Parmalee. Got to get him in. He's the bartender at the center bar. We walk up to get a couple shots, and she's by herself because she won a ticket to the Stones by ripping her ticket stub from a concert in a barrel. If that doesn't happen, nothing matters. My kids aren't born. I have no career. I don't know where I'd be today. She's the one who's made it all happen. She's the best part of my life. She loves you, and it's all good. And she puts up with the shenanigans of the boys and the road trips, and she sees the big picture of my passion, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I'm very lucky, and I'm very lucky that you pulled this off today, man. I don't know how you did it. I really don't. I am fucking blown away. And don't excuse my French. We're on YouTube. But, man, this is going to live on forever on my 30-year anniversary as a caller, which started my whole life. And there was nobody better to do this than you, my brother.
Well, JT, it was the word honor gets thrown around a lot, but you mentioned it to me as a moment. And, of course, I thought that'll be great. Telling the story will be great with you. And then it just hit me. If we do this right, there's only one guy that can help tell that story. It's Jim. And we brought him in because, frankly, it should also be an incredible moment for him. He should recognize it, and he certainly did, and I love that. But I want to mention just a few people before we go. We'll say goodbye. But a few people that didn't get on here today with us, but of course mean a ton to you and me. Bobby G, of course, Bob Griffin the Great, one of your best friends who just happened to not be able to make it, but he's a huge part of your story, a huge part of the support system with Jimmy V and Flipsy, like we said. Also, my cousin Jack, Crazy Jack, A Night Out with Jack, who loves you like a brother, is such a huge proponent. He's sort of my Jimmy B in my ear telling me to do more of this. He loves you. He loves what this can be. He's sending his best today. My buddy Drew Sherman, the biggest Raiders fan that I know outside of what you do. Of course, what you've been with Drew at so many games over the years. Drew loves you, has followed your career for all of it. We love Drew. Thanks for him for being a big part of it. And of course, Stephen A. Smith, I mentioned it. He was trying to get on. He couldn't quite make it on here with us, but he knows what you've done. He knows those early days. You guys came together. It was a transition in his career when he came to Fox Sports Radio. You know, what he did at the Inquirer was tremendous. He came out as sort of career number 1 at ESPN and then was getting back at it, did early morning radios at Fox Sports Radio. I mean, he was on at 3 a.m. local time, West Coast time, and did it. And you became good friends with Stephen A. He loves what you've done. He knows what this takes. He knows the grind that it is, and he understands that 30 years is a big deal. He loves you as well.
Well, I couldn't be happier for Stephen A. He's a monster and a better guy. He's a better guy than that. So we have that relationship, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I want to thank your parents. They had a big impact on my life too, right? Because I don't have the love and friendship with you if it isn't for your parents, who mean a lot to me. And you had my dad on today. So shout out to your folks. Shout out to your beautiful wife. Shout out to my guy, Levi.
Yes.
Look at the you're going through in life. And I think the next path for you is going to be the biggest of all of it. And that says a lot because you're a best friend of mine, a great friend, man. And my heart is full today. I had no idea this was going to happen. And you blew me away. I love you, brother.
JT, I absolutely love you. The 30th anniversary of the SmackOff. I let you thank you for shouting out Raymond and Marlette, as Levi calls them, Ray and Marmar. But yes, a huge part of it. My brother Aaron as well, Osama, as we like to call him back in the day. But really, just huge, JT. Thank you for remembering April 14th that you knew it. You knew it was today. We had to get it out there. We had to let people know how huge this was. You're a Titan. Go do your thing locally today. You and I, of course, will talk later. Thanks to your incredible family. And let's just run down who we spoke to today. We spoke to Jim Rome. John Gruden joined us. Your best friend, the great Jimmy B. Eric Allen, the Hall of Famer, was here with us. That was unbelievable. I just want to shout out Bruce Allen as well, by the way, who would have joined us and couldn't quite, but he's a big part of your career. But we also spoke to Brad Flipsy, of course, Tom Looney as well. And again, your son, Johnny, who's got an amazing career that he's looking at, and your dad, the original John Turnauer. We had 3 JTs on today, and that was maybe the most special part, certainly for me, and I imagine for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't top that. I mean, you seriously cannot top that, and you pulled it off. How about that picture there with the brick?
That is so
a
good.
classic?
JT.
Me and La Jolla standing up against Merrill's brick wall, holding the brick, going, please, God, guide me through this next chapter. 30 years ago today, winning the SmackOff. How lucky am I, man? Love you guys.
Love you, JT. Have a great one. Everybody, thanks for being with us, and continue to watch out for JT everywhere he goes. And you can catch me as well. Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam is where I am on YouTube as well. Thinking Out Loud is the podcast that I do with Andrew Siciliano every week. And also catch Damon Bruce on his channel. Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube as well is a big one. And JT and I love Damon as well. But of course, you're here with JT the Brick on his YouTube channel, which is where you get this incredible content. 29 years with the Raiders, 30 years overall in broadcasting. Thanks to Jim Rome for providing the platform, JT, for you to knock it out of the fucking park.
Thank you, Sam.
Beautiful.